Okay, we'll call a meeting of April 9th of the Board of Adjustment together. First on the agenda, minutes of the last meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the March 12th minutes to the meeting.
It's been moved. Do I hear a second?
I'll second them.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any additions? Okay, call for a vote.
Dan, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan, aye.
Bob, aye.
Okay, Barry?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The first item is Nick Evans. This was continued so that the applicant could look at potential options to do a zoning division. He has done that. He will be doing it on the north side of that lot of record that was cut out. And so he has submitted and signed a request to dismiss. Motion should be.
Okay. We can then move on to number 2, or do we?
You gotta make a motion.
We gotta make a motion here.
I'll make a motion to dismiss the Nick Evans with no prejudice.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Nope, Dan, Vic, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Mall, aye.
Bob Newman, aye.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Terry, I can't remember if they're going to be remote or if they're going to be in the audience. No, I do believe they're on the meeting. Now, Biak, are you on the virtual meeting? Oh, there you are.
This is John Biak.
Okay, John, we're rolling into your item, so just a minute. I'll call you when the board has questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this property was before the board here last fall for a lot line adjustment. Now they're coming back and they would like to do an addition onto the existing detached garage. The addition request is 20 by 24. It'd be at the same distance from the highway, which is 78 feet, as the existing detached garage. That garage was previously by variance in 1975, so it's existing was granted for a variance. They just want to make it a little bit bigger. The size isn't the issue. The only issue here that the board is looking at. So, we did receive approval from the township and one neighbor, the Fluskus. They have approved. Do you have anything more to add, John?
Just the fact that I've spoken with all of our neighbors and have received no objection. Everybody is okay with us moving ahead with the addition as well, just from the neighborhood.
Is there anyone else on the call that has comments? Go forward, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Dan, we'll start with you.
All right. It fits the building lot size too? Okay, so that was my only question on it. Township approved, so I guess I'm okay with it.
I should say, yes, it does fit the lot size. So the building fits the lot size, I guess, just a small amount of it. The microphones might not pick it up, so
Okay,
I better
yeah,
articulate.
yes.
Paul?
Yeah, it's a modest structure in size. It doesn't stand out from the other structures in the neighborhood. It's not excessively close. It's in line with what he had before. It creates no line of sight problems or concern. The township doesn't have any concerns, and so I think the request is reasonable.
All right, Dan?
I guess I would concur with my constituents.
Okay. Bob?
This is just a storage unit. Is it insulated, not insulated? Is it just what's the purpose for the addition?
Barry, was that a question to me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I'm having a little hard
What's
time.
the purpose for the addition?
Oh, it's going to be a workshop slash garden, parking lawnmower, and I think somebody might have asked if it's going to be insulated. Our intent is to finish the inside and have it insulated as well. but primary for a workshop / garden shed type of thing.
And the existing building that's there, what's the purpose for that building?
The existing garage is a 3-stall garage, if that's the question.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't, a lot of times I'll have those old files with me. I didn't have it with this one, but I believe that actually a portion of that was allowed as a guest house back in 1975 when it was originally.
Yeah, there is a second.
Variance was really given, it was given a guest house portion within it.
Right.
But I don't believe it's that way now, but.
That was my questions.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Ben?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance as regulated in section 155.026, 155.0, am I the right one here? No, I got the wrong one, sorry.
And Paul, on these, you don't necessarily have to go through the sections. Terry will take care of that when we do our document. You can just start right after those sections.
Oh,
You just make a motion to allow the construction of.
okay. To make a motion to allow the construction of a 16-foot by 27-foot
No,
20 by 24, you're on the next one.
right. Yeah.
You're on 3.
Oh, my. I'm a 3.
Want to put those glasses on?
Jonathan Bick? Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. To allow the construction of a 20 by 24 addition to the existing detached garage 78 feet from the center line of the road.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Mall, aye.
Bob Newman, aye.
Thanks, John. Good luck with the wedding.
Thank you very much, Barry. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Okay, record?
Yeah, we're just moving right along.
That's what I was just gonna say, just wait.
Morning, Bernie.
How you doing?
Name's Terry.
Bernie Miller.
Page record.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what we're working with is a 39-acre lot, property that's on the west side of Twin Avenue, with some access on the east side of Twin, with frontage on West Lake Sylvia. The request is for a 16 by 27 addition to the north side of the existing structure. That is a two-story addition that would bring the existing property or existing structure, which is currently conforming to the 30-foot setback, to 15.3 feet from the side property line. As with the request we had last year, anytime that a portion of the proposed construction brings it to non-compliance, we look at the entirety of what's being proposed. So in this case, there's also other portions that are being proposed that meet the 30 feet, but since the entire structure would now be non-conforming, we look and that would include 23 by 24 one-level screen porch and an expansion of the upper level to include more living space there now. In the slideshow, I have the finished elevations for the structure, but I have pictures of what exists now that will come at the end of the building plans. So this is areas where the lower level will be adjusted and expanded. So the upper left is the existing, lower right is what is being proposed, similar on the main level. You can see the screen porches, that portion sticking off to the left. What's going to the north, the 16 by 27 is to the right. And then in the upper level, the upper left is what exists, and the lower right is again what will be. 27 will be two-story at 15.3 feet from the property line. And then the cross-section drawings of the structure, so it will gain some height. It's not getting to the point where it's getting our height requirements, but will be a change in height. And the pictures of the existing structure as it is now. The only comments we did receive approval from the township, and the Robinsons have approved the request. They originally asked, well, how does this affect our ability to do anything? It doesn't. It's each one. Well, then we have a problem.
Okay. Paul,
Well, let's go to the
yeah.
application's chair.
anything
you.
to add, Bernie?
Morning. Yeah, we have a little bit to add. I'll start out by saying it's a little bit different than one for me, because usually we have lots of, variances, but this is a builder that has been working with Paige and done some of that remodeling there, and I'll let him fill in some more details a little bit on the history and stuff, but they were asking me how can we look at this, and I think they involved the house designer, and we had the house designer's just the basic layout of how the house is about the only way to add on to accomplish the bedrooms, and that was to the north. And so to make it livable and for the upper level. So I said, let's just try to keep it as far back as we can and not go any closer than 15 feet. As that is the setback for the surrounding properties, you wouldn't really know any different here. So we had that's what they had come up with. I think, we had designed a sewer when this place was sold, when Paige had bought it. So it has a new sewer, as you can see, that's on the roadside. It is a property that's across the lake. He's got the 38 acres. It's zoned agricultural. I don't know, and I believe it's ever been farmed. Maybe little bits and pieces of it, or a garden or something, but it's very hilly in the back. If anything, it would be a tree farm. And I know Paige has, been working with soil and water and eradicating buckthorn and making food plots, and that's kind of the intent. But this part sticking out is kind of a remnant. And we looked at, I originally talked to Barry about it, like, is there any way we can, rezone this or change it? And basically there's not enough frontage left to be able to subdivide off a piece of property and make this work. So there was really no possible way for this to become rezoned, or any way that we could change the setback to 15 feet. So with that, I'll let Paige talk a little bit about things there.
Sure. Well, another part of the investigation is I tried to buy 15 acres or whatever I could from the neighbors to the north. 15 feet, yep. Sorry, yeah. Their 10-acre parcel, and they didn't want to do that, and I understand. So I did try that. I did try to buy the house to the south, which is owned by an individual that lives in Pennsylvania, that's here once for 5 days a week. He didn't want to sell the outside. We've looked at it over the last 18 months as many different ways as we could. The other concern we had to the south was we've got a couple wells that are capped in that southwest corner, and
You can kind of see where the steps are.
Yeah.
By the porch addition on the southwest corner, and that notch in there, there's a couple wells in there, so they're just trying to avoid that. And
that bump out portion is just a crawl space. It's not a full basement at that point. So the full basement is only to the northern part of it.
Okay. Paul?
Barry, can you go back to the aerial shot? The bigger one. Okay, thank you. You know, I looked at this and I think the location of the home is unique. And so the result, many of the factors that I would concern me don't in this case. For example, the location of it in the lake, the wetlands around or the wooded area, the likelihood of development. So the home is isolated, surrounded by a wetland or woods that are likely won't see any development nearby. So any concerns that I would have with future development impairing that one side are kind of gone. It limiting the access to the back, like we would be concerned with on a lakeshore lot. I don't have to worry about that in your case. The larger structure doesn't stand out in the neighborhood where it's located. It's not like a typical lake lot where you have right next to each other, and it would have an impact. And more importantly, it would have an impact from the lake, the larger structure. So the size of the structure doesn't concern me. The distance between the road and the lake is a good thing in that I don't have to worry about a lot of the other issues that would concern me with a home of this size and the runoff and the drainage. So there's a lot of things that are unique in this situation that lend me to believe that I can grant you the variance. I know doubling the size and increasing the value of the house is something that we normally take seriously. But I think in this case, there are enough unique factors that allow me to believe that the intent of the ordinances don't apply in this case. Normally, when we talk about increasing the value, exceeding the value of the home, and then conforming it, that would be something that would be really high on my mind. But in this case, because of the uniqueness of the property and its location, I feel comfortable with granting the ordinance. Granting the variance.
Ken?
And I agree with a lot of what Paul was saying, but where I have a little bit of a struggle with is that the lot next door isn't been built upon yet, and that, so the neighbors are there. So if we allow a conforming piece of property to come, granted, I know we're in the lakes, we've been down there lots of times and seen different setbacks. But if we allow a variance here in ag land at 15 feet, how does that affect the neighboring property for a home location? So now all of a sudden, I want to build a house on my property, and the county has allowed him to be 15 feet away. Now all of a sudden, I don't want to be right next to him. I mean, how are we affecting an undeveloped piece of property? And I can't answer that question, and the neighbors probably can't answer it.
They did. They were the neighbors that did.
Yeah, but at the same token, when it comes time for them to build, and my neighbor's 15 feet away from my property line, now all of a sudden, if I'm 30 and he's 30, we have 60, if the land lays out that way. I don't know that. I can't. So that's a concern I have.
Can you turn the contours on there? Or is that just a snapshot of?
Those are just snapshots.
Okay, well, that's fine, and I think that it's. Yeah, so you see that, I would suspect somewhere around that 1080, you see that bullseye contour, would be where someone would build there. And, as you look down to the south and the whole way across this, obviously there's ag for the most part, as you go south of this property, the entire way down, except for there is a bunch of smaller pieces that were split off, and I think it's fairly common in almost every situation to have 15 feet.
Yep.
You know what I mean? This is not unique. This the part that this is narrow, just like every other piece sticking out there that comes out towards the road. That's why I said, I think, you have so good, a reason, because, you don't have the frontage, of a 40-acre piece. Because if you had a full 40 acres and you're asking to be shoved up 15 feet, that, and you had all this frontage, that wouldn't make sense. I mean, if you're building a new house, we probably wouldn't do it. And I think that he added on, initially they were thinking of building a house towards the rear or somewhere back behind this, and to leave this as a guest house. And because of the size and that, they couldn't have the size of a guest house, so they did fix it up and done some remodeling, and then, kids started showing up, and it's like, they weren't sure how much it was gonna be used, and all of a sudden it's, they really like it, and they like that, location, and so they wanted to, expand that. So, if it was in worse shape in the beginning, it's possible, it would have tore it down. However, does have a unique barn that they've restored in the back, and so I think that as far as that property itself, for the most part, everything's, whether or not it's been that way forever, even before they split everything off, because I think the house was there before they split all these other pieces off along the road. I think you can see that it was that's the garage, right? Yeah.
So that's been restored now. I'm so proud to say that we were able to salvage it, bring it back to life. The roof was rotted, the floors were rotted. I found a farm in Illinois that had the same size floorboards, so we were able to patch that. So I'm real proud of being able to save the old girl, as I call her. That was a labor of love, almost as much as cutting down buckthorn and sumac for the last 2.5 years. I'm dreaming about that stuff now. But
from a staff perspective, the only thing would be is that was never approved. Also, if you think about the garage portion, that doesn't meet the setback ordinance.
Well, I guess that's some of my concern with the 15 and being in ag, but we'll see how some of the other go.
Bob?
I have a less of a concern about the 15 feet because the neighbor is not developed yet. And the topography is probably as such, because of the slope of the neighbor, they probably won't be building as close to the property line as that. So I guess I don't have any. The only thought is when I was looking through your plans, the septic, I assume, will be adequate for the living space that's created?
As of now, the system is compliant. The size of the system can be modified, or time dosing can be added. I haven't, and did Scott, or
Yeah,
did
I'm pulling it up now.
Scott comment on that?
I'll look and see if he did.
This sewer meets the state size standard, the sizing for the state minimums, but doesn't meet the county minimums for new construction. And then typically in cases like that, they leave it. I mean, he has plenty of room to do other systems. He could add onto it, or he could add time dosing, and it would become compliant. So there's really no issue at all with.
I think that might have been.
Yeah, I talked to Scott about it initially, so.
whatever needed on that.
Yeah, there's room to do it, yeah, that's the point of sale thing. When the system fails and it gets updated, it's always an issue that, they do it for what the house is, and half the time the people buying it are wanting to do something different anyways, so it's like.
Scott's comment is the existing, which Scott is one of our environmental health, so we review all of our septic systems. Existing septic system slightly oversized for 3 bedrooms per county sizing for a 4-bedroom. Per ordinance, bedroom additions within the required SSTS for treatment area cannot be practically increased proper treatment area size shall be time dose. So he said in this case, adding time dose, all they have to do is add a timer.
To the pump controls.
Right.
So, yeah.
Then it would be,
That's my thoughts.
Okay,
So that'll all be brought up to compliance with the county.
that'll be taken up. Yeah, and, you know, regardless of if they needed the variance or not, if they went from 3 to 4 bedrooms, this would be a requirement that we handle at the permit level. So the board doesn't have to condition it. Our code is going to. Or can, but you don't have. That's going to require it in order to.
okay, Dan?
Seeing everybody's questions and stuff covered all my concerns. You got a little bit of a hardship because that house was there and we went to split addition, so I'm okay with that. At 15 feet, we've done less than that, so I'm okay with that, especially with the existing garage. What is that, about 10 feet off the line down there? Roughly.
Yeah, it's going to be.
So 15 would be okay in my figuring, so I'm
Okay,
ready to vote on it.
all right.
10 at the closest corner. And then the only other thing from a staff perspective is the crawl space itself. I mean, the crawl space itself on the plan is 6'11" and a quarter.
Seven's living.
You know, unfortunately, I've seen contractors do stuff in those situations where it makes it, 7 feet is considered fully livable. You're not supposed to have it habitable if it's less than 7 feet. This is less than 7 feet, not supposed to be habitable. But you add 3/4 of an inch to it, it's a full basement that can be used as a habitable space. Is that a concern for the board? If it is, condition it. If it isn't, condition it that it could.
What would be the drawback if it was done to 7 feet?
In this case, not a whole lot, because you're not looking at setbacks to the septic or anything else. You know, once it gets to that 7 feet, it's livable, well, then the 20 feet. Our septic guys then don't,
For size of the septic?
then we need a variance to be the 7 feet if it's less than 20 from the septic.
I wondered why it wasn't at 7, but you're okay with?
They asked me if I wanted bedrooms down there, and I'm like, no. I mean, this is more than enough upstairs, so it's storage. You know, we're not doing a egress window or anything like that, it was storage, so.
And then, is that the height of, because it does say there's some existing at that height, is the basement or the crawl space there now that height?
The existing basement, yeah.
So it doesn't sound like it's intentional, it's just to match what's there.
Yeah,
And,
But it's always something that catches my eye, because I've had to deal with it on too many occasions. You know, okay, we're gonna do a 6 basement, and you go there afterwards and it's 7.2. No, now it's not crawl space anymore. It's
But at 6'11", it's, you're splitting hairs now.
and if it's
about
7,
half of what we do is split hair.
I know.
and if it's 7-1 in this case, you know,
Would the board have an issue?
I mean,
So do we want to note that on the motion then?
Well, from my standpoint, if it doesn't matter if it's 7 feet, I would say it. That way, if they wanted to go that, then I know that you're fine with it. I don't have to have them come back to you because now they change what's crawl space and living space. So it's nice from my standpoint, just that, you know what, I'm big on if you want to do this, do it. Now, this plan doesn't show it, but, you know, like I say, it's only adding 3/4 of an inch to it. I mean, that can be done with one row of block and all of a sudden you're 7.6.
So we would have,
If they want to do it that way, then say it.
wouldn't you have
Allow
to,
them the ability to, so I don't have to have them come back here if they wanted to do it.
wouldn't you have to have that noted though, that the septic would have to meet a living space down there? Because most
Septics
likely,
are sized by bedrooms, so as
Yeah.
long as they're not showing any bedrooms down there.
Or
have
any
no
egress,
plans for a bedroom,
any egress windows.
Egress windows is all they would need.
Yeah,
And
but I'm
then
just saying that if they're not in, then it's not
Well, even
capable of
if
putting
it's one
bedrooms.
of them, it's a family room,
Yeah.
so it's not gonna conflict with septic size.
so as
I know,
long,
there again, I'm not presuming to know what you wanna do, I just like to address that kind of stuff when I see it. It's splitting hairs.
4 to 5
You
years
could
down the
live-
road.
You could watch TV in a 6'11" in a quarter basement, no problem.
and not know that it's not
And
7.
not know that it's not safe. That if
Unless you're-
somebody gets hurt down there, your insurance isn't gonna cover it, because you're not supposed to be it as living space. I'd rather have people, if that's what you want to use it for, show it on your plans, do it that way, meet all the codes, that way you don't have any issues. Kind of watching out for you in that sense, especially here. It's not like we're dealing with, you know, a super small lot where you can't increase septic, or we have to dissect it so much. Here we don't have that issue. At 39 acres to work with. If it's an issue with the amount of expansion, well, then we know. If it's not, well, then we know. So that's why I brought it up.
That's a good point.
Okay.
Would you be interested in doing 7 instead of 6? Make that motion?
If you wanted to. There again, this would just give him the option. If he wanted to, he could do it without me then saying, oh, no, you gotta go back to the board because you added 3/4 of an inch to your basement.
It would be taxed
So,
more.
even whether you want to or not, they can just say, well, if you want to, you can. If you don't want to, set the plat to 611 1/4.
The optionality would be nice. I mean, if just in case, you know, so it's not gonna be livable space, but I don't wanna get in trouble down the road with you guys, and so I'd rather be safe than sorry.
That's why I bring it up.
I have a question, Barry, and maybe I shouldn't even bring it up, but so this proposed deck is 13 feet from the drain field? How did you guys look at, I mean, I know administratively that's,
Administratively, Scott can approve it or anything.
Okay.
They can administratively, a non-living space, garage, crawl space, they can administratively approve a septic at 10 feet, down to 10 feet.
and actually Troy puts out that it's, you know, structures, livable structures, it's 20, you know, and they can administratively go less. Everything else is 10. Okay, so it is, so what he says is 10 for this, but.
And they'll do that if, you know, slab on grade home, you know, they can administratively that down to 10 feet because there's no basement structure underneath the level of septic that, you know, in theory, they're not, you know, it's concrete, but if something were to happen, you get that waste digging away at your foundation. You know,
Yeah. Well, this is
soft spot in the concrete or something. That's what we.
gas. and
That's
stuff.
the theory on why.
Yeah.
You know, so if it's as long as if it's just the footing, we're not as worried about it. 'Cause the footing's 4 feet. The septic, everything should go under. Where
Yeah.
a basement, you go 7 feet or 8 feet. That potential for anything were to happen could negatively affect.
And this drain field's 28 feet or so from the house, so there's room to expand it. We'll just get close to, if we expand towards the house, we got 3 feet. We'll get close to our 10-foot from the deck, but, you know, there's still plenty of room. It doesn't, the deck really doesn't have an effect on if we have to do something different in the future. If we have to add on to the sewer, there's not a lot of effect on it, so. Since we're clearing the air on everything, I thought we'd just make sure we cover everything.
That's why it wasn't mentioned. It's deck. It doesn't have any living space underground, so we didn't. That's an administrative thing.
All right, any other questions, concerns? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
You want to just do as per plan submitted on exhibit A, building plan, exhibit B, site plan exhibit A.
So moved, with the addition to the motion that the headroom could exceed the 611.5 to 7.2, or do we want to put a number on it? Just exceed it. And
Can be converted to a living
space. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess with that, I made that motion, right? Everything else is as per rating.
Okay, it's been moved. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Mall, no.
Bob Newman, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got a bathroom break.
Okay.
I think I'm going home now. I think so.
You're been here for 3 or 4 hours?
I hope not.
Hey, we're moving along pretty good.
Till Bernie steps in there.
Yeah, he took the longest.
Again, his pants didn't fall. And again, his pants didn't fall off. That was good.
Yeah, if that neighbor would've had a problem with it, then it would've been.
I think a little more, yeah.
Hurting anybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Jeff, this is my wife Beth.
Are we to you or?
No,
No, Bob?
and I think.
Dan?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I.
Names for the record first?
Yep, sorry, Terry.
Go ahead, could you,
Names.
Jeff Matthews.
I'm Beth Matthews. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a 22,474 square foot property on Westlake Sylvia. The request is to remove and replace the existing screen porch and deck. Screen porch is 12 by 18, existing deck is 14 by 18, with a new 18 by 26 addition. Actually, I'm going to skip past the plans real quick. And so right now, what exists is the deck and a screen porch that are elevated with nothing underneath. The proposal is to basically use that same footprint but make it into a living space addition. The roof height would be a little bit taller than what the existing roof heights are, but the way they tie it in, it's a couple of feet. It's not a substantial increase. And as mentioned, it's getting no closer than any of the existing structures. Except kind of the biggest thing is the corner, you're looking at the corner of the deck that would now be living space versus deck. So it is, and with the angles of the house and the shoreline, it's closer from one corner to the other. I believe like 71.5 from the one corner and 67.5 from the other. Just because of angles. But it's not getting any closer than anything that exists right now as far as something attached to the house. It's just going from a deck space to a living space. And really, I don't have a whole lot more to add. There is going to be there's a deck that's going to they're going to put on the north side of the structure, a 4-foot wide deck that would, a walkway that would then, now it's bigger than a platform, but I believe setbacks and everything are still fine. Wasn't added into the request, but it's really, it's a landing, but it's a little bigger than what our landing. It is for the technicalities. They talked about going a little bit wider, and I said, well, if it's 4 feet, it's a landing and it meets setback, we don't have to get into it. We did receive approval from the township, and one neighbor, the Odegaards, has submitted.
Okay, where are we at here
Do you
now?
want to add anything as to what your plans are or anything?
No,
More
it's-
than what Barry's
You
had?
got questions you can ask?
No, just that, as Barry said, we kept it within the existing footprint. We'll keep it on the pylons as they exist now, so we're not no plans to expand the basement. It's all open underneath. It's just simply replacing the one structure with a, as Barry said, just additional living space, heated space.
Barry, can you go back to the pictures of the house from the front?
Probably should have reversed those. I know it's sometimes hard to see over, but that one on the bottom actually is the kind of the better view of what's there. I'll run it over with the picture on the left.
Well, yep, I can get started. I guess I was looking at what we've done on other lake properties, and You're not increasing any roof coverage. You are increasing some roof coverage, but I consider the deck basically roof. You know, water's gonna run off of that, it's not going right in. You're staying 67 feet away from the lake yet, and for me on the board, I've always kind of had this, you know, 60, 65 type scenario, so you're not increasing anything towards the lake. With the impervious coverages, my understanding is you're still meeting all the impervious coverages of the
Yes.
lot and all of those things, so we don't have to be removing any driveway or anything like that. We're still within our 15 feet of side yard setbacks. So looking at it for me and some of the criteria I run through, I can go along with what's being proposed.
Thank you.
Okay,
I see that the elevation from the lake to your proposed building is about, if I do the math right, about 30 feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, give or take. To the ground or to the elevation of the
No,
floor
to
elevation?
for the ground.
Yeah, it's probably about right. It drops off a couple times. It's tiered as it goes down. Yes.
And now, Barry, is, 30 feet is kind of the definition of a bluff, if I read my code things right. But I see it goes up very steep right from the lake and then not so steep after that. So is the percent of slope?
It's not a bluff, and that's kind of the thing with ones like this. I'm guessing because of what we look at is I think it's 86 feet over 20 or 25 feet to get 30%. I got a little spreadsheet when I review these, so I can just pull them out, go foot by foot and try to figure these out. I do a lot of bluff calculations. In this case, you're looking at 45 feet at the most from front to back in that far northwest corner. And you're covering over 200 feet. So from front to back, it's not going to make it. And then there's also a thing in the ordinance where over 50 feet, less than 18%, that portion isn't considered a bluff. And through that area where the house is here, it won't meet 18%. And so it does really quick, but it's not excessively high, flattens out, and then a little bit more in the back and then flattens out. And so with that flat area in the middle where the house is all located, it doesn't provide enough slope to be in that bluff category.
Okay. Then my follow-up question would be is if your setbacks from the bluff would have been adequate, but in this case, it does not pertain.
Okay.
It doesn't really have any details of what your proposed addition will be used for. Is it just?
It's just a large room.
Okay, so there's no bedroom?
No.
That sort of thing?
No.
Okay, so then that doesn't affect your septic or anything either? Okay, my concerns for now.
okay.
Most of my thoughts have been answered, or actually all of them have. I think it looks like a nice addition, so I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I do have a few concerns. I do agree with a lot of my boards here have shared, but, we do get a lot of requests, similar to yours, and lots of times they're for a 3-season porch. And we'll grant those requests on some occasions but we always have been pretty consistent on making sure that 3-season porch doesn't turn into a year-round porch. So my concern is if we did grant this, what do I say to the people that come back that we granted the 3-season porch and say, hey, now I want a 4-season porch? So I'm struggling with that right now, and I really don't know quite how to handle that. We're only talking 7.5 feet. It's not much. And like Dan has said, we have granted variances to 65 feet or less. I mean, there's a lot of things here, but I'm really struggling with how to answer this precedent, because we're almost reversing what we've worked really hard and not preventing.
Sure.
So I'm really struggling, you know, do we have a water, stormwater management plan in place with your property at all and handling, and I mean, can we, I'm looking for ways that we can make some improvements that would help offset what we're doing here. That's what I'm thinking. Can we reduce the distance a little bit, a foot, or can we move that your addition back a little bit? I mean, these are my concerns. Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
I guess that's somewhat what we're doing. This is a 3-season porch, and you're replacing it to a year-round enclosed,
Yes.
enclosed room.
Yeah.
And kind of like you've said, you know, people do a 3-season porch, and the next thing they're coming in for the 4. And I guess for me, I look at it as far as the stormwater and those things, they already have it. The runoff isn't going to change a lot. 200 square feet in the calculations and stuff is very minimal. You know, they're basically converting a 3-season to I mean, they're already, the kind of the concern you're talking about.
Yeah.
Already there.
That's already there, so they're converting to the year round.
But then my point being is that all the other 3-season porches that we have granted this to, with the stipulation that this will not be a 4-season porch.
Right.
That's what I struggle with. You know, we just kind of contradicted ourselves on that, so.
So what I would say is that with what I've seen, a lot of those that you're talking about are ones where we're looking at further extension beyond what we have typically approved for, say, a new structure or something.
Okay.
You know, we see a lot of those where, you know, the house is at this distance, but then they want to expand the deck farther and include a 3-4. So now you're taking it and going with that further encroachment over everything else that's on the lot currently. Not saying we haven't had situations exactly similar to this that are 3-season, not, but most of those that I can recall, I can think of 4 or 5 off the top of my head. Those were situations where the deck or something is sitting much closer than what I've seen the board allowed for a house. You're talking 55 feet of that kind of distance, and in those cases, the board has been very, very 3-season. You're saying a 3-season, make it a 3-season. But the board has always said, you have the ability to come back and apply for a variance to convert it, but you got to come back and apply. If you're applying for a 3-season, that's all we're going to give you. I can recall actually 2 of those on limestone that we've dealt with somewhat recently. A couple on Sylvia. But that's just from staff's perspective. I certainly get your point on what you're thinking, but I do think of most of those
Are different.
look at the setback first.
Okay.
And see what that is, and then if the setback is a concern, then let's
Okay.
look at that portion of it.
That's fair enough.
I was gonna add too, usually from what I've noticed is they're moving that porch towards the lake. Here it's kind of staying right in line already with where it's.
That's fair enough.
Most of the ones I can recall are instances where they're trying to go forward from what they have already.
And it's not on there, but just, there is a stairwell that comes down in front of the existing porch now that will disappear. So technically, you could say ground coverage actually backs up away from the lake. So you can see that stairwell? That goes away. So there's 3 feet that takes us further away from the lake that will not be
And
there.
they're moving that and putting it off to the side.
Yeah.
Back.
No, based on what Barry just explained, I feel comfortable with the difference, the distinction between what you're asking and what we had before. I feel a little more comfortable with that.
Okay.
The stairway is moving, so I feel
Again, I'm
comfortable.
not trying to poo-poo your concerns at all.
No,
I'm just trying
no,
to-
but
from what
I was
can
struggling,
recall,
I was
these are the
struggling
ones
to
I've
find, I mean, we're only talking 7.5 feet. I mean, but yet, it's a big 7.5 feet, I mean, in our world.
Sure.
And so, but based on what I've heard, I can go along with it.
I guess, like Dan Vic, we're not getting any closer. We're not asking for any more. The amount of roof coverage, it's minimal. I mean, it is a little larger, but it is minimal, the amount of water that's going to come off of what's already existing. You take that stairwell away, that'll probably compensate for some of those square
Well,
footage.
actually, the survey is from a previous owner that.
You can say, it's a little confusing, I was gonna ask on that.
Your concern with this I would say you're right on.
Yeah.
This is what most of those conditions are for.
Yeah, we're not
are
doing that.
These extensions like this.
Yeah.
And on my plan, it's Xed off, but I must have scanned it before I Xed it off, so.
But thank you.
Actually, I think I
appreciate
took an email me.
I wanted that.
Yeah, and we came in and
Email, and
I like to stay.
we had Drew
Yes.
direct, and I used email one instead
Yeah,
of.
that's okay. When we were in South Haven, I had to go up and kind of cover it up too the other day, so to make it clear.
Understand it enough to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Remember, you don't have to add the numbers if you don't want.
I'll make the motion to allow the replacement of the existing 12 by 18 enclosed porch and a 14-foot by 18-foot deck with a new 26 by 18-foot addition on the lake side of the dwelling, 67.5 feet from the ordinary high water mark of the lake, and a 4-foot by 10-foot deck on the north side of the structure.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
And Mall, aye.
Bob Newman, aye.
Thank you very much, folks. Have
Thank you.
a nice weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Yes, you're welcome.
This is the one that's kind of strange to me.
Thanks, guys, by the way. Helpful.
You had to push hard, yours.
Sorry, I wasn't explaining, but, you know, I had the same thoughts when I was going through this, what you did, but then your roof isn't.
No point in me
There's
sitting there
already
like
a
a
roof
bump on
there.
the log.
You already have a deck there for water, storm water.
Some of that,
Yeah.
and I'm struggling, okay, how can I?
Yeah.
And Barry said it well, and you said it, so there's enough distinction.
We're not getting any closer. If it would have been a foot closer, then I would have been the other way.
This guy kind of exceeds everything here. Some excessive motion.
Just pull the top this to start.
Yep, have a seat.
Gotta pull that Bob start too. Could you give your names to Terry, please?
Teresa and John Whitstein.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what we're dealing with is a back lot on Lake Martha. This is next door to one that we dealt with a month ago. The lot, once the survey has been completed, is 8,250 or 85 square feet above OHW. Board remembers this is kind of not the main portion of the lake, but kind of a backwater area. But it's all connected and shares the same elevations. So the OHW, as long as the lake doesn't end, continues to where it continues to, which is following that same elevation line. And so the survey we have, again, 8,285 square feet. The request is for a 36 by 36 detached garage with a 14-foot sidewall height. The structure would be 28.5 feet from the ordinary high water mark, 10 feet from the road right of way, 43 feet from the center line. The building, because of the lot size, exceeds the 50% by roof coverage. It's also over the 1,000 square foot structure limitation total and the 800 square foot single structure maximum size allowed for this type of lot at this square footage. We do have the site plan for what's being proposed. It does meet the 10-foot side property line setback. And then the building plans for the structure itself. And the 14-foot sidewall that's proposed is above the 12-foot maximum allowed for an R1 zone lot. Our R1 platted lots from an old plat. As was mentioned last month, these lots were declared unbuildable by the board previously due to lack of sewer location, and nothing has changed with that. There is city services out here, but none of these lots that were declared, and I shouldn't say none, most of the lots that were declared unbuildable did not get access to sewer hookup, nor did these because of building area that's available on. We did receive township approval and one neighborhood opposition along Voight. Those were included in your packet this morning. Do you have anything more to add?
Well, all I wanted to say was, the location that's there is, what we're planning is to be the least excuse me, I can't talk, disruptive to the landscape. It shows some of the trees in there. Where that garage would be located, it's kind of an empty area for trees. And that's because 21 years ago when we moved here, there wasn't sewer yet. And that they put in holding tanks there temporary for about 2 years we used that have now been abandoned. I think they filled them with sand or something. So in other words, I'm trying to preserve the natural Northwoods look that it has. We have to look at that from our side of the road, so we have positive incentive to keep it looking attractive, okay? And so we're planning to be the least disruptive we can to the appearance of both the neighborhood and the natural environment. We're planning to go with earth tone coloring for the building. I drew up some plans, but I had to pick what colored pencils I had, so that isn't necessarily quite right, but probably have a grayish roof with kind of beige sidewalls, and what do you call the lower part of it there? It's called wainscot? No, what do you call it? What do you call that when you put a thing on the bottom? I can't remember. Wainscoting, that isn't right, is it?
It's something like that.
Yeah, so, but that, we want to keep it attractive is what we're trying to say. We want it big enough so we can back our pontoon on a trailer in there for winter storage. And then, of course, take it out in the summer. And that's part of the reason I lined the 2 driveways up there. It makes it real easy to do that. And then, of course, keeping it so we're backing in from the road is the least disruptive. If we went in from any other angle, it would have take a much more driveway area. And then, of course, we brought some pictures we took of other similar looking buildings in the neighborhood. It's a post-frame construction.
Yeah.
And just on 9th Street alone, what did I count? 5 structures, was it?
There's 5 existing.
5 existing similar structures. 2 of them on our end of the block down there, you know, just the last 5 houses, I think it is. I don't know if you're interested
Yeah, I
in.
definitely am.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
And, I'm recovering from knee surgery here, so it'll very much fit in with the neighborhood. It won't clash with the neighborhood at all. And so what else? What other talking points did we have?
Well, I think one of the things we wanted to point out too, the reason for the depth, the 36 feet, is because our pontoon is on a bunk trailer, and we can't just, like our neighbor does, he backs it in with his scissor trailer or whatever they are, and then he lowers it down onto wheels, takes the trailer out, and he can push it back. With ours, we measured with the tongue on the trailer, because we can't take our pontoon off of it. With the 36 feet is gonna be
I want some room so I can walk around it, you know,
so that's the reason.
His is 30 by 40, I think his building is. And
right.
Pretty sure his sidewalls are 14 feet. That was another point. There's a gradual embankment from the road down to the lake, which was, of course, is when we're gonna fit it in with the topography, you know, I'm gonna, what do you call that kind of landscaping where good drainage and all that. So in other words, the building will sit a little bit lower than the road, a few feet lower, which is going to make that 14-foot sidewall not appear so tall. So it'll actually look shorter than the building that's
just to the west.
I thought I saw you had an aerial photo there a minute ago where you could see there's a building. Well, you can see the corner of it there, I guess, is drawn in. Yeah, there you are. I'm not positive, but I believe that building is 40 by 30, and I think it's got 14-foot sidewalls.
You can see
the one to the left?
Right, the one that's
left, yeah.
existing right there, that one, you can see in the photo that we gave you, just the separate garage door entrance. Those are like, what are they, 7 feet high doors, and you can see it's only halfway up, so it's gotta be about a 14-foot.
Yeah, I think I asked him the size of, and I thought he told me 30 by 40, but I don't remember asking him about, but if you see a picture from the front and you look at, what was it, a 12 by 12 door, it's still got a couple feet above it, so. Pretty sure it's 14-foot sidewalls that he has.
There's also a shed existing on that lot that's gonna be removed.
Our shed that's there, yeah, the picture that's kind of hidden in the trees there, but that would be eliminated, yeah. I think we're gonna sell, I think you've got a buyer
I
lined
have
up to
a
buy
friend
it.
that's gonna move it to some hunting land that he has.
This basically replaces that. So it's basically for storage of items that we use on the lake and around the yard.
Mower, snowblower,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
So, any other questions?
Bob, you're up.
The 14-foot height does concern me.
Okay,
If you're only going to be storing pontoons and fish houses and that sort of thing, I don't really understand why you need a 14-foot sidewall.
we can live with 12. Would that be better?
That would be better.
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember it was last summer, I was planning it all out, and I can't remember where I came up with 14. Part of the reason that we picked that structure size is when I talked to the contractor was for conserving building materials, because the building materials come in certain sizes, he says, so if you pick a certain dimension, then he doesn't have to have a lot of cutoffs. So that's a big part of why I picked the size. We want the room we had, and then I picked a dimension that worked well with the building materials. Don't remember why I came up with 14 foot for the sidewalls, but I think 12 foot would work for us.
So here's kind of the thing, when looking at these lot sizes, we have a survey for the lot to the west. We have a survey for this, now we have a survey for the lot to the east. The lot to the west has more area above the OHW, is where the OHW is. So if you kind of look at that heavier line, that's roughly the OHW line. So the lot to the west, the lot area above OHW exceeds 20,000 square feet. And so the structure that's allowed goes from 800 square foot to 1,400 square feet. The sidewall goes from 12 to 14 because of the amount of area that's above the OHW. So that's the reason that one was approved at 30 by 40 with 14-foot sidewall, because it's what the ordinance allows. This lot with the survey in the OHW, it's in the 800 12-foot sidewall height max level. Same with the one to the east.
Can I, some years ago, we were going to do this project, and we didn't do it at the time because we had kids in college, and we decided that we didn't quite have the cash flow to deal with it at the time. But if I remember right, when we went down there, they were talking a square footage more like about 25,000 square feet for that lot, because you go by the blue line there. Roughly, it's like 100 feet by 250 feet.
It's 28,000 square feet according to the blue line.
Right, right, and I thought that's what they said that we had to work with for, you know, using your formula there for 15%, I think it is. So the 8,000 and to me, that ordinary high water mark is kind of an abstraction, because practically speaking, you can see there's I think it's a man-made embankment. I'm not sure, it was before we were there, but I think sometime in the 1960s is when they designed all this.
And they dredged out that back.
I think that's what we've heard, I don't know.
That's how come it looks more
Right.
like lake. When we bought the property, it shows on our title that that's just a
Drainage,
easement.
10-foot drainage easement is what they show at the rear property line. I think we've
And
even
it's
got
hard to
that
tell
here
how
somewhere.
deep it is, but I kayak, and once we get past the beginning of summer, I can't even get a kayak back in there because there are weeds.
But I don't, you know, that's getting into stuff that I don't know that well, except that I remember them saying that, yeah, what he said for the square footage there. Like I say, we want to make it environmentally friendly. We're not planning to create pollution. We won't be adding any burden to, as a matter of fact, I pretty sure it'll raise the property value, therefore we'll be paying more taxes in. It won't cost the county or the township or the school district anymore. You know, it's not adding kids to the school. They still have to plow the road the same way they did before, and any other expenses that are incurred by the government units. So we're at it, in other words, it's, to me, I see it as a win-win for everybody. We get to have our garage, enjoy our pursuit of happiness, so to speak, and the county or the government units get more taxes in without any greater expense to them. So, like I say, to me, it's a win-win for everybody. It's not going to be very visible to really, I don't think, anybody, because we're planning to preserve as much of the trees as we can, especially the major trees. So I don't think from the west you'd even be able to see it. From across the street where we are, we'll be able to see it. But again, we want to keep that nice Northwoods pine look that it has. And then to the east, it'd be similar. They would be the trees would surround it. So, and they're mostly pine or evergreen trees that have year-round foliage. So I think it'll blend in nicely with the landscape.
Okay.
Can you, any other problems or that?
Well, the unfortunate part about your lot is where the ordinary high water mark is, and you are 28 feet from your proposed structure is 28 feet. And if we look at the topography, not only are you 28 feet, you're only about 2 feet or 3 feet above the ordinary high water mark. So apparently that must be very flat, your lot.
2 feet above the,
Yeah, well, I see that.
Well, if you're looking at the rear of the building.
I see the ordinary high water mark at 968 or thereabouts, and the end of your shed is about 970, not even 972.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the landscaper we talked to, well, he was gonna make it for good drainage and that, but if you look at the neighboring ones, I know what they used was a rock retaining wall.
because we're
I'm not sure if that's how
gonna have to
the guy would want
obviously go with the front of the shed, so.
The front of the shed would
is
be
where we would be looking
would be
at
the
how high
elevation of
was.
it, yeah. And that would be what, approximately,
Well,
what,
there's
2
about
feet
4 feet,
below
4
the.
feet from the front of your shed to the back of your shed, is what I look at with the elevation. So, I understand that, dirt's gonna have to move if you were going
Right.
to do this. But I'm just saying is that you're not, unfortunately, because of the shape of the ordinary high water mark and of the lake, it eats up a big chunk of your lot. 28 feet, I don't know if I can, it's a concern for me.
Well, I guess I'm not sure what you're thinking that would, the harm that it would cause.
When you look that, by ordinance, you're supposed to be 75 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So
around,
you are more than halfway past, if this is 75 feet, you're more than halfway, closer to the lake than you should be. And that's a concern. Maybe the rest of these guys, maybe that doesn't bother them.
Well, does it matter that that's private property back there? In other words, the lake is on top of private property, as opposed to the lake on where our house is, where that's considered, I think, owned by the DNR.
I own a lot of marsh and water land.
Okay, all right. I don't know.
I understand that, you still own it. It's just, we look at, are the request for the variance reasonable?
Well,
according to what the ordinance says that it should be.
I'm guessing that the reason for the setback probably has something to do with pollution. And that's why we're planning on environmentally friendly landscaping that will allow for proper drainage, so it doesn't, you don't get gully washing or anything like that in there. That would be up, you know, the landscaper that our contractor is a professional landscaper, so he would, it would be done professionally so that, you know, we don't, because we don't want a washout to happen, if that's what the concern is.
No, my concern is just the distance.
Yeah, well, I mean, I imagine that it's there because they're concerned about pollution, isn't it, primarily? It might be for sight lines too, but I'm thinking.
There's the statement of needs and responsibility that the DNR puts out, and they put these out in the shoreline rules were adopted, list out all of the reasons. Yes, you know, erosion and one of them, aesthetics and just keeping structures off of being right up onto lakes is another. So there's a number of different reasons. That would be one of them.
Keep in mind that the lake embankment is considerably farther back from the ordinary high water line, which just is basically a grassy area that floods when the water gets really deep. You know, that gets a little bit, it's, you know, you don't want to walk back there because you'll get wet feet, in other words. That's what it amounts to. It's nothing you could take a boat on. You know, well, it's pretty well shown where you could take your kayak, for instance, or your canoe. Or if the water's really high, maybe a boat with a motor on it might be able to get back in there.
Are we talking the high water mark is that heavier white line that goes around?
Not quite. It's just about to that one.
Okay.
That's why we require the surveys, because these are all approximate. The surveyors go out there and they elevations when they're outside.
So we're looking at the building up in the corner up there. That is one of our neighbors, Al Miller's garage that he built.
To the right, yeah.
And it's
Pretty close.
pretty close to that line. And I'm just not sure.
I think
I'm flexible to a certain extent on the size, but the really important thing to me is that we can back our pontoon in it and be able to get it in and shut the door. You know, it may not need to be 36 feet wide, but the 36 feet deep. Because our pontoon sits over there in those pine trees, and of course pine trees attract the red squirrels. And one year we put everything in the pontoon to try and keep it protected, but the squirrels got in and ripped up the inside of the pontoon. We're trying to get it so we can put the pontoon in, keep it away, keep our property, you know, so we can keep it uncovered, because as soon as you cover it, we've just built a little home for all these squirrels, and they go in and chew up the electrical and the furniture and that kind of stuff. So we'd like to have a structure where we can get our pontoon in and have it uncovered so that we're not creating the space for them.
Guess let's keep moving and see what the rest of us think up here.
Well, maybe the rest of you bring up some of my other points, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, when I originally seen it, I thought you're trying to cram a lot into there, you know, and we have to look at the whole county, not just your particular lot, for hardships, of course. And I was thinking, yeah, you know, a little oversized wouldn't be so bad. Height, I agree with Bob, I wouldn't go any more than 12.
Okay, that's fine.
You know, a 32 by 28 would give you 896 square feet, and that would push you away from the lake a little bit. I would maybe lean that way. You know, it's 100 feet over what's allowed, and that's pushing it for me even right there. So I was trying to see your point of getting it long enough, but if it was 28, how deep is your pontoon long?
Well, the pontoon is a 20-foot pontoon, and then you have the motor on the end, and then the trailer has the
sticks,
tongue.
it's a bunk style trailer, yeah.
We've measured it. You can't take the pontoon off the bunk trailer like our neighbors do next to us. They've got a pontoon the same size as ours. They back it in, lower it down onto those little dolly things, and then they push it. They can't leave the trailer in then either, and theirs is 30 deep.
So if you had 32 foot deep.
I think I measured 28 feet from the back of the motor to the tip of the trailer hitch.
We had a 32.
And then I'd like to be able to walk around it, of course, too, because, you know, to service it in the wintertime, you know, so clean it up and what, all the things you need to do
I would
to.
really struggle with any more than 100 feet over that. I understand you
Yeah.
got a circumstance, but, you know, there's other areas that are, we just don't. So I guess that's all I would,
So
If
you
you-
said 32 by 28
yeah, I was on, you could vary.
with a
I'm trying to
12-foot
get you-
sidewalls? Or-
With 12-foot sidewalls?
But I don't know what the rest of the group's gonna, maybe they're not okay, but that was pushing it for me to get
Okay.
to there, so. I would be willing to look at that though, but, and 12-foot sidewalls, cause a little bit ain't so bad, but when you start pushing
Right.
400 feet
I'm,
over.
I'm sort of more looking at the neighboring buildings, and it's not out of line with
Different
what they
situation
are.
though, sir.
Right.
I mean, if you have that lot, you could do that, so, I'm just saying, I'd like to work with you, but.
Right.
Here, Paul.
When I came this morning, I had, pretty much, to be honest with you, a hard, fast no, period. What your neighbors are and what you are apples and oranges. And I was prepared to list all this out for you. But listening to you, you have brought up and addressed some of my concerns, some of the big concerns. So I would like to see you put some sort of structure out there, but not what we're talking about. And I'll break it down a little bit more for you. On the OHA water setback, I think we determined that this part of the lake is unique, and that's one of the reasons we could consider your neighbor from having such a close setback. Keep in mind, you're at 28 feet and he was at 52, so it's even more sensitive, but it is a unique situation. So I am a little lenient on that. I really appreciated the photos that you brought because it really changed a lot. One of my biggest concerns was how it would fit into the neighborhood, its size, its proportion, its character, and you completely eliminated it, and I have no problems with a building, even a bigger building than your neighbor's was proposed, fitting into the neighborhood. That was big, so you solved that. And I appreciated the fact that you had a 12-foot, we're willing to go to a 12-foot ceiling from a 14. That was another huge obstacle to me. But at the end of the day, that footprint is still pretty big. And I'd like to see that reduced. What else was there? But I just want to emphasize that what your neighbor was granted and what you are proposing are two different things. I really would like to see you have some sort of structure. I think you can have a structure on there. It just can't be the size, the magnitude that's being proposed here. Now, when you can, it sounds like you're willing to revise and work that.
Right.
That's great. You know, I'm willing to entertain that, and I'd like to see something work for you. But as you're proposing, the size, height, all that, it just won't.
Right.
So, you know my feelings on the lake. I think we can make that work because it is a unique situation. It's not a true lake per se. It won't obstruct the view from anyone. I think it looks at a highway or a road, you know, across there.
Right.
So I'm willing to work with that. Where are we on impervious coverage?
It's.
Are we good?
It's not gonna, yeah,
Okay.
there's gonna be minimal driveway because it's 10.
Okay, all right, so, but those are my thoughts, and I'll pass it on to you, Dan.
I agree with everybody, the concerns up here. I'm still having a real hard time with, last month we had the neighbor in on the other lot. And I guess if I recall, I made that motion, but within that motion, you know, we already knew that potentially another neighbor was coming. And I was the one that suggested, instead of being 5 or 6 feet off the road, to move it to 10, because that moved to 54 from the ordinary high water mark. And I think, I don't know if it's exactly in the minutes that way, but the way I recall it, I says that's as close as I want to get. I mean, other lakes, other times, other things, the board has been pretty stringent on variances. And I guess, Barry, when this was deemed unbuildable, what did that determine? Just that it was unbuildable to a house, but you could still put on outbuildings or utility buildings. So I'm a little bit more in the heart. I mean, even reducing it, we're getting way closer.
Oh, yeah.
And like Bob brought out, if you look at it, and I did too, look at your heights from that ordinary high water mark. It's not that much. You're only coming up 3 to 4 feet, and you're at the back of that. And by the time you landscape, you're going to be landscaping and doing stuff around the back and moving dirt and disrupting things. And you're probably going to be within 18 feet of the ordinary high water mark. By the time you move around the back, you landscape it, you put in a little bit of a retaining wall to hold it because the front to the back is 3 to 4 feet difference, or adding in fill to build it up. There's a lot of challenges with this lot. I mean, to do what they're asking to do with these variants so close to the ordinary high water mark. And you can say it's all swamp or it's wet, but at the same token, it's still connected to the lake. It is still water, it is still wetlands, and the other notes I had is, where's the hardship here? To store a pontoon boat is not a hardship. I don't think we've ever given anybody a hardship for storage. There's rental storages within the county, there's neighbors, there's buddies, there's, so that's where I'm at. And I guess if they want to continue it until they can come back and give us maybe something that other people can go along with, I mean, that's up to them or what they want to do too.
Were these lots designed for outbuildings though? That's what I was considering it as.
Well, these lots were designed for houses.
But I mean,
At the time, I mean, when you're talking back in the, 50s and 60s,
yeah,
they just, whatever was there, they plowed it out.
But back in the 50s and 60s, it's like we've talked before in a lot of our variances on these lakes, they were designed for just a little 24 by 24 or 18 cabin where the people could come out on the weekend,
If I'm not mistaken, they made it unbuildable. I want to say the year was in the 90s sometime, maybe. It was before we moved there, but I think it was because of lack of sewer at the time. I think that was the primary reason, which, not that we're putting a building up that's going to require sewer. That's not, this is a storage building, but I think that was the reason, and I think what they mean by buildable is what you call a habitable structure.
Right.
Pretty sure, now this is not that type of structure, so.
But we're still putting a sizable building there with sizable runoff. I mean, we just talked earlier about a property with runoff 67.5 feet from a lake. Here we're talking 28 feet from a lake. So I'm not trying to convince, I mean, this is where I'm coming from.
No,
So if I heard somebody give a dimension of 32 by 28, would that work?
that would be something you would have to propose to these guys. I was trying to help with the
Right.
pontoon boat, and I was trying to get it within that 800 square foot.
What I'd like to see is, you come back and present us a drawing where you can say you improved the setback a little bit from the road. I believe that's what was said.
Hang on a second, it's from the where?
The setback from the road.
So move closer
Move it a little, well,
Is that
you
what-
can't move any closer to the lake. I mean,
Right,
that's for
right, I
sure.
understand that.
So basically, it means you're gonna have to shrink that building, and if you can demonstrate, that you've, are further away from the road, I think that would be a plus. I think how much that would be, I don't know, that's up for you, and whether or not that would be enough, I don't know, but that's what was being asked. And I was asking also the footprint of that building. What those dimensions are, you'll have to sit down with a ruler and figure that out, but if you can, move back from the road, shrink that footprint a little bit,
So-
it might convince some people.
So to get back to Dan's question, that was 1983 is when these lots were declared unbuildable. And
Okay.
the actual document, what it reads, based on the data as presented in the staff report and accompanying maps and soil testing results, with the exception that the entire Block 3 of the Birches shall be declared unbuildable because of the proximity to the lake, lack of elevation above the lake, and very small amount of high ground next to the road for dwellings and sources. So that was, and this is Block 3, lots 1 through 7. That's why they were declared unbuildable, is those factors. So it's partly septic, partly limited high ground, proximity to the lake. So it listed out all of those reasons why. And there again, yes, that's habitable structure with on-site sewer at the time. And when the St. Michael sewer system came in, lots were evaluated as to whether or not they should be stubbed, and they were not. So it's still that unbuildable for a dwelling. We've never required that unbuildable lots not be allowed a storage building those types of things, it just has to meet all setback standards. In this case, there's a few of them that cannot.
Yeah, and that's why we're here.
As proposed, it's 10 feet off roughly, in and off of the
Off of the right-of-way line, yeah,
right away. Yeah. And about
which is
30
approximately where the rear end of the existing shed is there. I don't know if I think it shows that on your, that's too close is what you're saying then?
Okay, but I think what they're asking for is you guys to submit a drawing of what you're requiring, but I know that personally from listening to everyone, I believe everybody's not okay with a 36 by 36. I was trying to throw some dimensions in there, I was putting them in my head, and that's why I gave you those dimensions.
Okay,
So the
Not
issue
saying what they're
with
okay
this is gonna be, as, Paul is wants some improvements. If you're looking at lake setback improvement with what they want, you're not gonna get one.
No.
Just because if you're looking to back directly in off the road right of way, your length, your long edge isn't gonna move much. If you 32, you're only getting 4 feet, so you're still within the shore impact zone with that structure.
The nice thing is you're moving in with my dimension another 10 feet or 8 feet the other way, so it would give you a little there, very little. The 4 and the 8 coming in and off the lake.
If we're trying to narrow it and go the narrow length of the property, what's gonna happen then is if we move the door to put the pontoon in, we're gonna go along the side, and now we're gonna have a lot more driveway there in order to try and get it in versus backing
it
straight.
would be more disruptive.
It'll take
yeah.
out more trees.
I'm trying to be the least disruptive
It'll
this
have
way.
a lot more driveway to try and back a 20-foot pontoon in that sideway. That's why we're trying to back it in straight off the road, because it will just be less disruptive, less ground that hasn't got ground cover on. Trying to be as.
Trying to save the trees, basically, yep.
I guess
That's
what
a-
I'm trying to say too, though, is as you use your neighbors for an example,
Okay.
if this goes like you had plotted, everybody'd use you for an example, and
Yeah.
it ties our
Well-
hands, so.
And so the other unfortunate thing here is with the way the building is positioned as well, it's gonna have an overhead door, and if you ever park in front of that overhead, half of whatever you park there is gonna be sticking right away. The township didn't raise that as a concern, but I know the board has.
Well, last month, we made sure he was coming in from the side for those exact things, but, I mean, those are, this size of a shed to be able to meet, even with a variance, we can't do anything. But it's a pretty small area to be able to build this size of a shed. I'm not saying that there can't be a shed built there, but for this size of a shed, you bring this down to a 24, granted it doesn't fit their boat or anything like that, but you bring it down to a 24, now you're 40 feet setback. Is that a little more palatable than 28? Maybe so. You come in from the side, so you're not parking on the road. You're coming in just like we talked last month and required that to come in from the side. And if you look at the overhead aerial, when they talk about trees, Barry, can you bring that up again, please? Now, according to what I'm seeing on that plan, I don't think it's flip-flop or it's upside down. The shed goes right on top of those trees in the open area. According to the surveyor, what we're seeing on that picture, the shed is going right in those trees. So there's gonna be trees removed. And then.
It's mostly brush where that is, it's hard to,
Well, even so.
you
that's
almost have to
where-
walk it to see what I'm talking about, to
Yeah.
open it, but it's where the
Where the existing.
Holding tanks were.
Holding tanks are sitting, where.
yeah, they had to remove a bunch of trees before we even moved there, but it was required at the time so they could sell the house to us.
Do we have a drawing of where you live? Are you exactly across from it?
The driveway you see exactly across is our
Do you have an
driveway.
attached garage now where you are?
We're-
We have an
yeah,
attached garage.
Yeah, we're pretty much, they're not exactly lined up, but we're pretty much across the road from the,
So here's.
there, somebody's got a picture of
There's
it
the
there.
shed, and if you look on plan, shed is sitting right in front of where doors would be.
Yeah, and then you maybe saw there was a boat on small boat on a trailer park. That's kind of, well, let's put it this way, there's no tree trunks in there, okay? You know, the overgrowth maybe looks from an aerial photo doesn't, but it's,
I will say one other thing, Dan brought up a real important thing there when he said we're having that last month that came off the side, so they weren't parking in there with the lot line, and that would be important too to me, I guess. Thank you, Dan, for missed that again.
Everybody
well, the purpose of the shed is so we're not parking on, we want to park inside. That's the whole idea.
But that is a
Or
potential problem.
the shed, I should say, the garage.
Give me
Yeah.
ideas for if you want to bring it back within their smaller size.
I guess that would be my question to you. Do you want to do some redrawing and reconfigure, listen to what we've said, or do you want us to make a motion up here and make a decision? Would you like us to continue it for a month and you can come back with some?
I'm not getting the vibe that it's not, that my chances are too good with the way it's drawn. I'd like you to okay it the way it is,
But it's pretty clear that that's not gonna happen.
well, I don't know.
So, redrawing it is an option, but at the same time, if you're concerned about us parking things between the road and the structure, that's, I don't know how to tell you that that's not our plan. Our plan is to put stuff in the
There's
structure.
also, we're planning to preserve some of the trees that are right in there too, so you wouldn't park where trees
If we're
are.
gonna try
I want to see the trees, you know,
Yeah,
from my
I
house.
guess, the point I'm trying to make for you is that it doesn't sound real positive up here the way it's presented.
Correct.
Okay?
Right.
So that way you have a couple of decisions. You can either go back and rethink it and try to change it to try to help your case.
Right.
Or you can kind of take the talk up here and saying, this is what we want, we're not gonna spend the money, let's just ask for a dismissal, you know, with no prejudice, it just goes away, you know, you just have us dismiss it, and it, you know, your request doesn't happen, or we can do a denial up here, you know, or make a motion, and we'll see how the vote goes. It's kind of in your court as to what you would like to do. But you've been hearing all of us talk, so you're gonna have to kind of take a straw poll in your own head as to what.
I was just gonna ask for a straw poll.
Well, you're not gonna get that, other than what the conversation has been. You're gonna have to do that in your head as to what you think you're.
If we,
So the options are a continuance,
Yep.
or go
And then
with
you
the
can go
vote,
back
which
and
is-
draw or think about it
Right.
and discuss what you.
continuance means we kind of redraw it and represent it again?
Correct.
I guess that's probably what we would do, but I'm trying to get a feeling for what's likely to what is it, a majority
What's
vote
gonna
you
be
have to have, or a
acceptable?
unanimous vote?
You
I'm
know,
not even
what's
sure
gonna
how you
work
work, but,
for all of us here is kind of what we're trying to do.
yeah, I want to come back with something that's going to sell, you know, I don't want.
That turns a building.
You know, we're not trying to.
But I also,
get the biggest thing we
being able to
possibly can.
back in from the road is pretty important
See,
to
I
us,
think
and
that's
also
what you-
preserving the existing trees.
You have to go and talk amongst yourself as to what's important to you and what you're willing to do. And if, I can't speak for the group up here, but it won't work for me the 36 or the 28 feet from ordinary high water mark. I'll tell you that right now. So a pontoon, that size of a shed, for me, my vote probably won't happen. So you have to decide whether the other four will go along with the 36 foot. And whether it does or not, but it's something you have to come up with. You have to go
Right.
back and decide if it's gonna work. And if it's not gonna work, then you just dismiss it and we all go our separate ways per se. Or you come back and work with Barry or whatever
And
and
then
put
the
it to
other
a
option
vote.
is just, you can just ask them to decide on what you have. You ask them to do that and they don't approve it, it's gonna get referred to the county attorney and they're gonna draft findings. Once you do that, then the only way to come back with anything else is going to be to reapply. Once they make a decision, your only option is then to reapply for something different. So the continuation gives you option of redrawing something else. And there again, it's hard for me too, because I don't know exactly what the five are willing to accept. I've heard, You know, something around or less than 900, I've heard smaller, no more than 800, you know, and definitely, you know, turn it, I've heard that, but not everyone says turn it. So I can't tell you what to do, but all I can do is summarize what I heard. But the continuation at least gives you that option. And the other option is, if you dismiss it, well then, in this case, there's no building that can be built because they have to improve, because there's no way to build.
Okay, now, one of the concerns with having the garage door facing the road, you said was parking a vehicle in front of the door, that it would be out on the right of way, is that right? So we had a 10-foot setback, which would not, we don't really have plans to park anything like that, but I'm thinking that would be, well, I guess a vehicle is longer than 10 feet if it's parked, unless you park parallel, I suppose, but I don't know, is that?
I think Barry can summarize it for you later. I think
Okay.
we need to keep.
Okay.
Okay, so what I want to do is, I guess what we want to do is, I think you said continue it, and I want to present something that I think is likely to get approval.
I'll make a motion to approve, continue it to our next meeting.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Terry, what's the date on that?
May 7th?
Yes, May 7th.
Wait a second. What day is your surgery?
May 6th. Well,
He's
she
having
could maybe, I'm having my other knee done on May 6th,
We can move it.
but it sounds like we don't have to be in person though, or?
Well, we can move to the June, or we have 2 in May, don't we?
28th.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can move it to the 28th.
That would probably be a little better.
Yeah,
Gives you a little more time to.
unless she could come and leave me at home. Well,
Well,
actually,
I'd
that's the
take
day
you out
I'd
of
be
the
coming home from the
hospital, so
hospital,
that's probably not gonna
if everything goes
Let's
well.
go to the 28th, that gives you a little more time to, and then.
May
the only thing I would
28th.
ask is that, you know, you would need to have to me a couple of weeks before.
Right,
Okay,
So I move to make.
Is there a second?
28th of May.
Okay,
I'll second it.
it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Pam Vic, aye?
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Mall, aye.
Bob Newman, aye.
Okay, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
thank you.
How does that stand, record?
Hopefully we'll have something to go along with it.
Yeah, we have to keep those for the record.
That was helpful.
See it. That's not- You gain an extra 6 feet besides the door.
This could be.
Don't go out.
Yeah, they do, it's a tough.
You know, and so they'd have to turn it back and this, but
But what they,
they could get there.
Hey, Justin, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Well, not bad.
Lots of responsibility, everybody else.
Other duties as assigned.
6, right?
Yeah, hasn't that caveat that's all?
Yeah, it's at the bottom of every description.
Very good. I did, you gotta throw this work study in college.
me too.
Okay, could I get names?
John is in here, John's,
Oh,
sorry, it's okay.
I guess not.
We lost our chair.
Was a leg operation comment.
You heard it, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, this is the Dusty and Jackie thank you request. The property is 61 acres, has an existing house and one available entitlement. The request is to break that entitlement on a 10-acre parcel on the west side of the property. It includes approximately 4.2 acres of what's considered prime tillable farm soils. I really don't have a lot for you here, Mr. Chairman. These requests are usually a little more simple than the lakeshore ones, so that's really all I got. We did receive approval from the township and no other neighbor. I'm going to turn it over to the applicants to explain their request.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
Dusty is my son-in-law. I'm Joe DeMarais. My wife and I own the property, have owned it for 46 years. When we bought it, it was rocks and brush. It was part of the John Volitzik probate. And we've worked to farm it for that long. The reality is she and I have gotten close to 80 years old. In the last 6 months, since she broke her hip, it's been a challenge. Dusty's there every weekend helping. We still have hogs and cattle and intend to stay there until we can't. And this will facilitate that. We're kind of talking about 1.7 acres, aren't we, Dusty? Over what the limit's supposed to be. And the only thing I'll tell you about that 1.7 acres, it gives me a job every spring because there's lots of rocks on it.
Okay.
Just 1 second, Mr. Chairman. Is there anyone on the virtual meeting that wants to speak to this request? Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yeah.
Could be me.
Yeah.
I really like to preserve tillable. I looked at it and I thought, you know, I think you need 200 foot of road frontage, right? And where are we at right now, Barry?
It needs 300, they have 313.
313. I thought we could get, it was 200 I seen somewhere.
It's, well, 200 is for lots 2.5 to 5 acres or 4.99 acres.
Oh.
But you're over 4.99, it's 300.
I like the rectangularness of it instead of just jogging around too, but I thought on this one you had the room to run it narrower there and then kind of L it in the woods. So you weren't using up so much tillable, but then it's also in the family, so that makes a little difference for me too. So I kind of wanted to hear what the rest of the board had for an opinion on that.
I don't know, Mr. Chair, if I can address maybe some of that too. I think I tried to address it in the narrative. You know, part of that is that westernmost portion in order to try to save as much contiguous. It does get pretty steep, and there's those 2 drainage ways that come through there. So, you know, I think there are some practical difficulties in order to minimize the space and still have, you know, what's a reality a buildable portion of property, because there's quite a lot of slope there if get to that part of the property, especially on the road frontage.
Looks like you're planning on putting a house at about the tip of that arrow.
And in the high spot, yep. Yep.
It's a little tough there.
There's a fair amount of slope there.
And Paul?
Okay, Paul?
Pretty straightforward for me. You have a bill and entitlement, and we're trying to figure out how to best use it. There's a couple options here. Either both those options are going to involve taking out prime tillable. You did show practical difficulties, and I think that unless I hear otherwise, I think what you're proposing is reasonable. So thank you.
Okay, Dan?
Barry, question for you on the prime tillable land, and I probably know the answer, just but for the record, that includes the wooded area.
No.
That does not include.
No, it's specific, it's.
Under till.
I'll find it.
Because I guess I was
I'll
looking
find
at
it and read it
at the cross checks, looking on the cross checks for prime soil, it does go into the trees.
to you. Yes,
Right.
and rather than.
Yeah.
2.5 acres for divisions from eligible quarter sections if the building site is undeveloped cropland classified as prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance as defined in the land use plan. So actually, with that definition, when we redid the land use plan, we dropped the definition of statewide importance in the land use plan. So we don't use statewide importance anymore, even though it's codified in the ordinance. And so it's only undeveloped cropland classified as crop. what we do is anything that, we do on occasion, depending upon how things work out, we'll go back and look at historical aerials. I mean, we can see aerials back to the 30s on the U of M side.
Okay.
So we'll go back and see, well, what's been tilled, what hasn't been tilled, how long has it not been tilled, if it hasn't, and kind of make a determination from there on likelihood of being tilled. But we do look at historical photos as well. And because we need to, because there are other areas where, well, it used to be prime farmland and trees, and now they removed all the trees and they're farming it, so we have to kind of get that historical perspective. So that's kind of what we do. In this case, it's, that 4.2 is just what is developed cropland.
Okay.
No, we don't include the woods in that 4.2.
Can you bring up the aerial, or the photo, not the aerial, but the photo where you had of the area around? Yeah, that one. 'Cause I went on Beacon and also looked on some of it. I guess I've always been in past history, kind of a challenged one to develop farmland. I mean,
Yes.
the ordinances is that we're to preserve prime farmland. And looking at this property, the way that the property is configured, where you're asking to split it off comparatively with the other properties around, you know, it's that way in your community. Different houses are on 5-10 acre lots. And then I looked at your property. Where else can you split it off? That makes sense. You know, that works. You have a building entitlement. I'm not going to deny that or argue that. But you look at the configuration of your property, and where else do you put a house? You know, the other end, to the right of the property, it looks to me like there's water there. It's a lowlands. You're going to have some challenges to, you know, setbacks. You're going to be close to the road, all of those other things. So I'm going to go against what a lot of times of what I've done here in the past, and I can go along with the split just because it does make sense for the property, and I believe it is the proper place to put it. You're not continuing into the left because there's a tree line there. You're going along your property line. I mean, it makes sense. So I know I have to explain a little bit because normally I'm the one going the other way here.
Because I've been a proponent of that also.
Yeah, and that's...
That end falls off. The only thing it consistently grows is weeds if you let it.
Yeah.
It's seeded down right now in alfalfa because that's the easiest thing to have there. And it's a good clean split.
Yep.
So we intend to farm the rest of it, and if we got to start going around this and that, it's a pain in the butt, you know.
Right.
Yep, and that's usually where I've came from in the past, but looking at the property, the way it lays, where you're putting it, what you intend to do with it, looking at the topo and the contours, I'll go against what I've done, guys, I'm sorry, but I can go along with it.
No, we're gonna mark this down.
Yeah.
All right, Bob?
I too, at first I thought perhaps trying to cut it down to 2.5 acres of tillable would be the correct thing to do, but where you're gonna say tillable land, all of a sudden then you don't meet your 300-foot road setback. So by shrinking it up, you fix one problem and create another. And and then you do have a jogged piece because you would want to make it somewhat L-shaped or whatever. Because and so yeah, I guess I'll have to say that, you know, perhaps I don't agree with the 4 acres of tillable. It may be the best option.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Fisherman?
I'll make a motion to allow for the 10-acre entitlement division that would include approximately 4.2 acres of prime farm soils.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded.
Discussion, make that subject to survey and be restricted following the
So noted.
So noted.
Okay. All in favor?
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Moll, aye.
Bob Newman, aye.
So just did survey, submit that to our office, exactly 10 acres or.
I was on the fence. I
Some
wanted
class,
to
either one.
And it fell down to 200 feet. I thought it was 200, and I would have said.
Perfect.
300.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your service.
So, on these motions, now that he's made it easy, so you don't have to rattle off, that was my fun part. I just loved seeing how fast I could rattle it. He took it away, you know? I looked real careful,
Just a
you know?
survey of that. If
I
you're
I
living
look over there and everyone's
Right
looking
now,
down.
yeah.
I was actually gonna make the motion, I'm looking for it, looking, where is it? Motion manager, okay.
And then he eyeballs me.
Yeah, sure does tear down the description.
I'm gonna try to hold off.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's that little door stopper.
Yeah.
You can make it, man.
Try to hold off.
Hello. You want me to sit here?
Yes, please. Right there.
Okay.
You ready, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Give your name to Terry, please.
What?
And give your name to Terry.
Terry? Gregory Hayes.
Okay, yes, Mr. Chairman, this property is, I lost it. There we go. It's a 73 acre parcel. What's being proposed is a 4 acre division on the south end of the property that abuts Fending Avenue. The zoning administrator made a determination on the definition of an access strip, and in what's being proposed, he's indicated it does not meet the definition of an access strip. So there's two pieces to the request. We have an appeal of the administrator's denial of this as an access strip and a variance for the road frontage requirements, just because when we've dealt with appeals in the past, a lot of times we deal with just the appeal, but the board may agree with the administrator's determination, but then still see a hardship and be willing to grant the variance. So we included the variance as this one, so it gives the board that option if they then agree with the administrator's determination and say, no, we still will grant the variance. So rather than have them come back and apply for a variance afterwards because the board, it's not referenced in the notice, we put both pieces in so that it gives the board a little bit more flexibility and freedom. I'm not going to specifically read through the determination that the administrator made. That was all included in your packets. So you have that. We did receive approval from the township for the division, and we did receive written comment from Patent, and that was also, again, included in your packets. That is a lengthy one, so again, I'm not going to read verbatim, but they are opposed to both the determination granting the appeal and also the variance as well. Get into the request a little bit more. When the property to the south was developed, it left a dead-end street with 33 feet on one side of a quarter line and 33 feet on the other. So we had two separate property owners, each with 33 feet that abut their properties. This is the western piece. And so the request is to do a 4 acre division out of woods and non-tillable land in that corner with 33 feet against that public right of way versus going to the north end of the property or someplace else where there is road frontage. In this case, they're not doing a strip because it's just at 33 feet and it's all woods, and so it's just encompassing that corner with just that 33 feet of frontage. And so, like I said, the board has the appeal language and the language Sean used in his reasonings for his determination. Like I said, I'm not going to read it, so I'm going to kind of step back and let the applicant explain what he wants. We do have some people on the virtual meeting, so when the applicant's done with anything he has to add, I will be going to them.
Do I need to push the button? No.
You're
No?
fine.
No,
I'm
no,
good?
you're fine.
I'm good?
Yep.
Well, good morning, everyone. Planning Chair, Commission members, Dan, I remember you working at my house. If you remember, putting the patio doors in and the living room window and stuff? Yeah, wait, going back, throwing it back. But, yeah, talking with Sean and Barry, it kind of falls between the zoning ordinance because we have road frontage on two ends of the property, which is unusual. And where it would fit the ordinance is in the ag land, which is where you don't want to take out. And this is a wooded lot subdivision, and it's just a driveway access. It's not a road. It's not intended to extend as a road or anything. And just a single home. My son and daughter-in-law are going to build a home back there. That's what's going on with it. We're not putting it up for sale. We're not marketing. We're not doing any of this such. And we ended up in this situation, and the neighbors, Tom and Jenny Bauman, are here, who are on the east, and it was in the packet a little bit. We had dialogued with the township and the county about, you know, you're kind of splitting the road 50-50 so that if somebody wanted to do a driveway or a road, we have to kind of, we're at an issue where we're back in front of you folks. And we suggested doing a T back then, and it never got adopted and put in. And now the ordinance requires a T at a dead end in the ordinance. So I think that's what we're here, is to try and see that that works. And I would hope and think that you as board members think it's a reasonable request. You know, and I'm here to take questions because I understand in summary at the end, I could do a long access drive from 50th Street all the way back, but why do a 1,400-foot driveway just to get the same result at the end of the day? So, plus there's a lot of slope. It exceeds the slope requirements of over 8% grade when you look at the topo, if you looked at that at all. But happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Barry?
If there's anyone in the virtual meeting want to give any public comment at this time?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, state your name, please.
Yeah, my name is David Patente, and my wife, Amy Patente. We're both here virtually in the meeting. I did send a letter in to Barry, but I'd just like to spend a few minutes kind of discussing what's in there. First of all, I want to thank the county for notifying us that this request Mr. Hayes put in was actually happening. We were unaware. And I'd also like to thank Barry. Barry was very helpful with Amy in helping us gain an understanding of the details here. To make the story short, Amy and I purchased a lot in Hickory Hills subdivision in 2013. It was the last lot on the left at the end of Fenning Avenue Southeast. And we really fell in love with this community. Many of you may be aware it was an 80-acre parcel that was turned into a beautiful little subdivision where about 40 of the acres were used for lots, and the other 40 acres are shared by those 12 homeowners. And you know, the frontage, the size of the acreage of the properties allowed for, in the woods, really allowed for people to have their own space with, you know, during the course of the spring and summer and fall, you can barely see your neighbor. And we built a home there in 2015. One of the big questions we had when we purchased the lot was, we're at the end of the road. How can the road be extended, and how does it get extended? And we inquired from three sources. One was Ron Harkis, who's a family member that developed Hickory Hills. Two was Craig Kupfer, who was our realtor and who also owns the two lots on the other side of the road from us in Hickory Hills. And then lastly, after learning from them, I called Wright County, and I don't know who I spoke to. I should have took notes, but I called the zoning office and really confirmed what I learned from Mr. Harkis and from Craig Kupfer. And what I learned is this: at the time Hickory Hills was developed, the Harkis family was required to finish and pave 57th Street Southeast, which connects to Fenning Drive, and that Mr. Bauman and Mr. Hayes had the opportunity at that point in time to take part in the development of this road and to extend the road into their properties. And what I confirmed with the three sources was that it could at some point be extended. There's no doubt about that, but it would require the approval of Wright County, and that the frontage requirements that are currently in the ordinance would be maintained. So the downside for us, if the property was extended, is Hickory Hills would in essence get bigger. We still have neighbors with big lots and big frontage. That is not what Mr. Hayes is requesting here. And we are seriously concerned about the impact it will not only have on the value of the property, but our level of enjoyment with the property that we develop there.
Okay, is there anyone else on the virtual meeting that would like to give public comment at this time? Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I guess we're to you, Paul.
So Barry, do we want to talk about all two issues at the same time, or do we just want to go through and take care of the first one, being whether or not we, on the appeal part, or how do you want to do that?
Well, that portion is completely under the board's discretion. I mean, it's, to be clean about it, you might want to address the determination first.
Okay.
Because the determination will directly affect whether the variance is even needed.
Okay.
So in this particular case, if you uphold zoning administrator's determination, then variance is needed for road frontage. If the board does not uphold the zoning administrator's determination, then the variance is needed. So it's directly related. So you almost need to address that first before you can address the variance.
As far as upholding the determination, I think that it was an accurate one. It met all the technicalities, so I'm in support of upholding that.
Okay.
We just want to go down the line on that one?
Yeah.
I too, reading through the ordinance, from my interpretation also, I would agree with what the administrator statements were.
I think the practicality of when you look at what potentially could be coming, I'm going to disagree with the.
Okay. Yeah?
I also would agree.
Okay, Paul?
Okay, so we need to make a motion to
Well, in this case, I would, what do you think? I think, yes, we almost need to.
We need to uphold or deny the administrator's deal and then proceed on with a variance.
With variance if needed.
So I'll make a motion.
Mr. Ballman had something to say?
Yeah, I guess I don't know, did I have to be on the agenda to speak? I guess I really don't understand what you'll have to get this microphone and name.
Come up here.
Oh. Well, yeah, I own.
Could you address your name for the
Tom
record?
Bauman and my wife, Tom
Thank you.
Bauman, my wife Jenny. So I guess I would say. I own on the east, yes, I own the east part. And, you know, I don't know what's coming in the future neither here. I think there's more coming than one lot. Hardship, if Wyatt wants to build a house, he can come in off of 50th and nothing has to be done down there. I guess the right place to put the road in, if it does go in, is on the line, is what the township kind of agreed with. At one meeting on that level, Greg wanted it all on his property line, and I spoke up to put on half and half at that time. You know, am I gonna develop? No, I'm still making fence. You know, is my land worth something with an access on the back end of it, yes. But I at least want, I don't know if you guys can take what I own and give it to him. I don't think so. So I think I have some say in what goes on back there, is where I'm at. Jenny, you got anything to add?
That's one thing to add, which I was surprised, and I agree, being forced to work together without a T or a Y or something creates this situation, and we're, again, to be clear, we're not looking at extending a road, don't have any intention to do a road, doesn't prohibit Tom and Jenny in the future to work with us to get a road. We did propose, and Barry, I should have sent this to you, I'm surprised it wasn't in the property packet. When we were at the township board meeting, we did suggest, and I had a drawing done that showed how, why, because Ts weren't in the zoning ordinance, and it meets the speed curve and everything, and it was determined not a good idea. But now it's in the zoning ordinance. But anyways, I'm just trying to fill in the background that we looked at it so that if a T would have been done, something like that could have been done at that time, but it wasn't. And that, again, meets all the speed requirements for road in the curve and everything. But at that time, the zoning administrator said, we don't do Ts. Don't get that, but I'm just trying to share that we thought that far ahead so that our neighbors or us, if trying to look from 15 years ago, if somebody was going to put a road in, but again, to bring it around, we're not looking at putting a road in or doing a road. We're just trying to do a driveway access, and 33 feet wide seems plenty wide for a driveway access. Size of the lot is similar in nature to Hickory Hills development, so I don't think it's detrimental to anybody in around.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna make a motion to uphold the findings of, planning and zoning.
Be the Wright County Administrator.
Wright County Administrator, thank you.
Okay, it's been moved, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded.
Who is the second?
Dan. All in favor?
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Moll, aye.
Bob opposed.
Okay, so now, variance portion of the road frontage requirements. So
Okay.
I would request that the board do the same thing, we kind of.
Okay.
That portion of it, using, again.
I'll start with that. This is something we've done before. I've made similar requests for variances for accesses that are under the required amount, so it's on dead ends and things like that. This is, just for clarification, a driveway, not an extension of a public road or public right-of-way of any sort.
Correct.
The location of the lot is reasonable, it makes sense, and I would not have an objection with the variance request.
Okay. Dan?
I agree with Paul, but some of the concerns I have is one thing, sitting on the planning and zoning, I look at things, you guys know, a little bit differently. And I'm very concerned with the lot sizes in these pieces of property, that this road comes up 50-50 to the property line.
Mm-hmm.
And it was intended to be extended with any more development. I look at the overhead, the ag-res, the map that we have up there right now in rural residential. It's planned by the township to develop. I mean, in the future, it will develop. Potentially. It hasn't been, it hasn't been rezoned yet, but it's in the plan. It's in the comprehensive plan, and that's what planning and zoning works off of. And by doing just an access strip, you just took it off of that property line and you just basically hindered further development of the property in that area. And granted, you may never want to develop, but it's a way of you blocking any more develop even for your neighbor, because now the neighbor of the other property, I won't say neighbor, but the other piece of property has to kick the road all onto their side of the property to be able to develop. And it basically could stop your side from developing. You know, you don't know what happens in future. We have to look at it, what's the future hold? People sell, things happen in people's lives, deaths happen, all kinds of things, and we have to really consider these things. And to have 33 feet touching your property, there's no reason you can't use it. I mean, you're coming off, it touches your property, why can't you drive straight off into your property? It's public road, but at the same token, we have to look at the future for development, and if you do that and we don't leave any provision in there for that road to run down the middle of that property line, it can create a lot of problems down the road. So for me, I think we've got to have, if we allow this, we've got to leave some type of provision in it that there can still be a road down that property line, but then the person building the house on your property, do they want a road right in front of them? And then they would also meet the road right of way then, you know,
Well,
the distances.
I think those are good comments, Dan. I think there's a couple of things that could happen, and this becomes a bigger picture question then, to address your specifics. If Hayes and Bauman now wanted to create a T on the south end of their property, that would solve that solution. But there is also a lot of strong topography. If you look at the topo there, you come in about 50 feet and it falls on the east pretty heavily, and then it goes up and then it goes across. So to build a road down that section line is feasible. Anything's feasible, but is it practical? Is it economically reasonable? If somebody was going to develop my property and extend a road, you'd curve it. You wouldn't go down that section line because of the rise and fall is so steep. You would naturally get off the section line, and you would work with your neighbors to create that curve like that drawing I showed. And if Tom and Jenny wanted to do something in the future and make something, that would be the more natural way to extend their road. And at the end of the day, this is unique because we have 50th Street frontage too, which would, if somebody was going to develop our property, and we've been there for 39 years, is you could come back and come in off of 50th Street with the road. It isn't a requirement. And when you look at the topo, I'm just trying to round out here, from the south to the north, to build a road that comes through, which was discussion, the topographical grades to build a road all exceed 8% grade, which is not allowed in the zoning district or not preferred. So you wouldn't naturally build a road on that heavy a grade, and the township wouldn't want to try and maintain a road with that heavy a grade. So we're not thinking of future development. The future could bring that this lot sells off a chunk for a road to extend for the Baumans. It's no different than the situation right now. If I want to extend the road, I'd have to negotiate with Tom and Jenny, or if they want to extend, they'd have to negotiate with me.
And I guess, I don't want to, not that we're not creating or whatever, but I look back at, there was an opportunity to put, I mean, we've seen it before, we've had it in planning and zoning before, where at the end of that road, you put a T or a big turnaround, so it hits everybody's property. So it hits your property, the Bauman's property, but for whatever reason, when the road was built, it was either overlooked or there was other issues and it didn't get built. And that's,
right.
It should have been done right the first time. So I don't want to do something here where 15, 20 years from now, the next board is saying, what was that board thinking by allowing this? Now it all of a sudden created other problems and other issues that they have to straighten out.
Well, that's where, when part of my discussion with Sean was, what if we just do an access strip? That was another thought, and he didn't want to approach it that way. didn't want to leave that piece of land between the access strip property and the south lot line. We don't have anything set in stone about how this lays out. It's just, I'm just trying to use the one existing entitlement I have and just do one home site. And you're absolutely right, and the best situation would have been to create a T. I'm not opposed to creating a T and then having a lot after that that would allow for something, you know, or providing for a hold the lot from the lot line, but then that creates a funny strip, you know, of land. And again, that goes back to if you look at the land on the lot line for a road, that's not where you would build a road anyways, because it goes like this, so heavy. So, but I'm trying to look to the future, you know, and I can't, that was part of the discussion with Sean and then Barry, and they said, well, this is probably the best way to come back. And that's why I'm here today.
Oh, that's where I'm at for now.
I agree with Dan. I think eventually Fenning and 50th Street are going to, is that Fenning?
Fenning.
Fenning, and we'll tee up to 50th Street sometime in the future, 75 years from now, 100 years from now, whatever. I don't know. And I really don't think that we want to limit. I mean, you look at the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And it's just going to happen. I see it. And, yeah, I don't have any problem with you building there. It's just, I really agree with Dan that we got to plan for where that road's going to go.
Yep. I would be open, as I've said here, what's the solution? You know, I've presented a couple of solutions to staff. And this was what came out of that discussion, you know, not, you know, the shape could be a little bit different, but it was just, you know, come off with a single driveway for a single lot and use the existing entitlement. And if the county wants to look towards the future in a road, then a T is the answer. If that's really, and I don't have any problem with that, but I wasn't going to propose that future planning. I was just trying to use my existing entitlement for my son and daughter-in-law.
Because I look at this drawing that we have here, and, you know, where can the road go after this drawing?
Do you want me to, you have the topo you can pull up? I can speak to that a little bit. Haven't lived out here longer. Us.
Yeah, it just takes a while to draw. I'm running off.
I did submit a full topo of my property with the app. I think you can see, you know, topo is the widening lines and the closer together, the steep lines. To bring a road up here, you've got a lot of fall over here. Falls, it rises, it falls, and then as you get here, there's a really steep hill, really steep downhill here. Land in this area exceeds a 15%. The road extension would not be logical. The bluff, and this gets to about 14% grade right through there. So a road and idea planning, to say goes through, makes some looking to the future, whether it's 70 years down the road or whatever, but there's a more logical way where you try not to, you can't fight that, or that without way moving a lot of earth. And so you try and say, let's allow for development, but let's try and do it logically so it fits and it works. If it's a flag lot here, a T there, that gets created to solve for that, maybe future extensions, so some of those could happen. I don't know what Tom and Jenny think, but I don't have any opposition to that, because that's what we argued for when Hickory Hills was developed, is to try and create a T. So that there was if somebody wanted to do something. But again, we're just trying to use a single entitlement. As I said at the beginning, according to the ordinance, I could get a access strip to build a home from 50th Street. I could put the lot right back here, back on the corner by the ordinance, but I'm not asking to do that. I'm trying to say here, and I think the time will work itself out.
Yes, sir.
Go up to the-
Sure.
You know, it isn't that bad through here. You got one place, if you ran the road down the middle, wherever it's supposed to go, this is the only spot. This is flat. These aren't bad, this cuts. This isn't that bad of a grade in here, what he's talking about. I mean, I'm not gonna have anybody give me a best use of my land.
I don't want people
That's
to
where I'm at. Tell you drop, this is a bank. This is a 70-foot bank here. The rest of this is, you went through the road in Hickory Hollows and you got culverts and you got filled in grade. You know, it can be done.
Yep.
Is what I'm saying.
Yep.
Just as easy as anything else going through.
Yep. But again, we're not trying to master plan our two properties.
Well, you kind of were.
So I'm just trying to use my existing entitlement and decide whether you want to put that existing entitlement in ag land, take it out of the ag land, do a flag lot off of 50th Street, or have an access drive off of Fenning. Time will tell to talk to the future, as I've heard here. If somebody wants to do something in the future, that doesn't terminate or eliminate Fenning Avenue to extend. Things change. You don't know, it's just one lot. And if you prefer that I hold it back from the south property line, I don't have any problem with that.
Okay, where are we at?
Could be me.
Yeah.
Guess I got some questions for Barry. And then you do, can you do like a access strip with an easement? You're saying that it had to go to your property line if it did run a road through there, and have to curve towards your property line?
Well, when Hickory Hills was done, that sketch for roadway showed an example, because nobody was presenting a T. Yeah, yeah.
But we couldn't do one connecting the two.
Well, you'd have to get the people who submitted the letter,
Yeah.
them to agree to sell a chunk of their land.
Well, if they decided to, that's up to them, but.
Yeah.
You either do that, or you work out with your neighbor and do that same thing, but north
Right.
of those ones.
Right, because a T wasn't
Then
created.
you don't have to deal with the replatting or the monumentation of.
But then if that's a requirement, if Tom and Jenny don't want to do that,
Yeah.
then I have to go put a lot split off of 50th Street.
But
And
could
is
we
that what the county really wants?
Could you set 66 feet of easement? I know it's only 33 is the thing, but could you do, in case it all had to go on his side later in the future? Can
Well,
you?
there again, I think in a situation like this where you have no idea where development's gonna be, you wouldn't do that.
You couldn't do a potential easement there?
Well, and there again, we don't dictate easements. So, from a county standpoint, you can't really condition anything based on something that we don't regulate. We don't regulate easements. And we couldn't, I don't think we could require that there be any type of easement established for it. Because there again, out here, and that's a taking. Saying future, you have to do an easement, you're basically dedicating that to the public, which is a taking.
Yeah. I'm just thinking if Tom does decide he wants to build a little, build back there,
Yep.
if they had an easement through there, you could then, there would be no arguing amongst
Yep.
at that future time. Because I'm not really opposed to an access strip there, because we might all be talking about that for not, it might not ever happen. But if he had that set aside, or if Tom would decide to build, then that would be already
Oh, sure,
there.
then they could approach me and say, do you want to sell
But
33
if it's
feet?
in writing that, yeah, you have to do
But
it
again,
at
it's
that
the
time.
same today. If either one of us, we'd have to agree to do something. So I don't think that situation changed. And as I said, I'm willing to pull the lot back with an access strip if that's, but the application that was submitted was based on conversation with Sean and Barry.
I guess what I was trying to say though is I'd be in favor of an access strip, but if that road came through, you'd have it tied to that road. If, I don't know if we can do
I
that.
think that's reasonable.
Can we put that on there, or that would it tie?
You could, well.
If Tom wants to build, then he has to put that.
Unfortunately, our council isn't available today.
Sure.
Because that's not, I don't know if you can set a condition that on the east side of the 4 acres, the east 33 feet must be, you know, available for public right of way or purchase or sale or anything else at a future time. I don't know if that's an adequate condition, and without council giving that, I couldn't say it is.
In the access.
I don't know if that's something that's defensible within, you know, I don't know if we have the ability for the board.
I would just say that if we do an access strip, that would take you and want to put that road through there. I mean, more likely whoever bought that.
Maybe you don't know the future, you know, because I'm not going to live forever,
But
so
if the
I
access
can't
strip
see to
is
the
denied
future.
When that road goes through, to where you have to tie to that road,
Yeah.
is what I was wondering if we could make a motion.
And you're right, Dan, if the road went down the line, Tom and Jenny would have to approach us and say, hey, do you want to work something out to extend the road? It's no different than today. If you wanted to, you know,
I'm just saying whoever owns your property in the future would not want to work with them as much if they already have an access strip.
but that's only for one house, yeah.
So I was
And since I only have one entitlement, it's the same, you know?
maybe when another 20 years he decides, yeah, let's develop
Yeah.
it. I'd like to give them that opportunity to get
Absolutely.
that road through.
I don't think it goes away, and we're good neighbors. We've lived together a long time, and if Tom and Jenny said, hey, do you want to create a T on the end of ours so that we could go either way or something, I'm not opposed to that, I've said that. But I can't
We can't put it in writing
hypothesize
either that way.
every theoretical outcome in an application. So if the board here says an access strip is better off that because it's going to be easier to work out in the future if something happens, I'm fine with that too.
I guess just from a staff standpoint, doing an access strip where there now really doesn't change it at all, actually.
No.
And actually it could make it worse, because there again, if you want to move the road one side or the other, now you might be cutting through a lot you just created versus just the strip too. So,
Barry, now in the ordinance, the way it's written, you have 33 feet touching your property.
Correct.
Okay, now that's basically a driveway.
Correct.
I mean, that's wide enough, the way it is right there. You come up off of the neighbors, the Bauman for that property. He can put a post in that corner and you can't cross over it. The neighbors that have already talked earlier can put a post on theirs, so he's got 33 feet he can drive between. That's enough to get any truck, any delivery truck through. It's on his property now. He's now crossed his property. That being said, why do we need frontage for a build? We're supposed to, I know all the ordinance says we need so much, but we create access strips. We create 33-foot access strips that come off of a road. We have a 33-foot access strip, per se. But, you know, that's why with the administrator, I agree with him with what he was saying. But here we have 33 feet touching a property line. It's a driveway. He's driving off of the road into his property.
well, you should remember very well the smaller property. And
Yeah.
that's the exact same situation. In fact, we just had the variance request to arrange and rearrange those lines so that the same thing could happen. You know, enough room, because in that case, it 33 feet ended at the corner. So added a little strip to it so that it would at least get a driveway access. One's somewhat similar to that, where
Somewhat similar, but
where it's not meeting the road frontage requirements. Would be granting a variance for 33 road frontage versus 300.
correct. But don't,
Or not.
but when we grant the access strip already at 33 feet, we've had plenty of those where we've come in and they want 33 feet off of the road. They don't have frontage.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, the board hears those too. The ordinance allows for access strips not less than 33, not more than 66, when it's to access a wooded site or otherwise preserve tillable ground. That's administratively approved. We administratively grant those all the time, but a few of those every year where they take a strip, they go down a field edge to access a woods that's a quarter mile back on an 8. You know, those get granted administratively, provided they meet requirements and size and all that kind of stuff. And so we grant those administratively without this board even seeing.
And I think it's important to remember, you know, Mr. Hayes did say it is a reasonable request for the 30-foot access. And I think it's a pretty reasonable access. And I don't know what the future is. There's quite a few scenarios. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. If they're going to develop something like that, it's a huge project. And there's going to be a lot smarter people than you and I working on it, and they'll figure it out. In the meantime, you know, it seems like a reasonable location for to put a building site versus, you know, putting a long road in. So, again, it's just my 2 cents.
I agree 100%, except for you're tying Tom's future up.
Again, in the future, they'll work that out. I mean, there's all.
And I wish Sean was here as well, because I don't recall. Greg, you might recall better than I. I was in and out of the email strings, so I don't recall if that was ever brought up. But you know, with two entitlements, you know, provided changes were made, well, if that building were gone, there's 600 feet of road frontage. You do a 10-acre lot with the house that comes back 300 feet wide on 50th Street, leave 300 feet on 50th Street for the remainder. It still doesn't mean you can't build a house down here and then come off of this. I mean, from an administrative standpoint, there again, I'm not the administrator, but that would be one other thing that, well, would Sean approve that house with a driveway out of here? I don't know if he would or not. I wish he was here so he could speak to it.
I think we're just trying to solve for a driveway and trying to solve for the future, and I think we're good neighbors, and if things change, and granted, there's no guarantee we're gonna live there forever, and Tom and Jenny are gonna live there forever, but if something comes forward, we're gonna try and work together. I mean, that's all we can promise to do without coming out and platting the whole property and coming forward with a whole plat, and I don't have any intention of doing that. I don't think Tom and Jenny have any intention of platting and subdividing their property, but if it does come, we'll just meet together and try and solve for X, because there's still options there.
I agree with you. You can do it now, because I think you guys could work it out, but no saying who the next owner is, you know, and they're, nope, I got my access here, I'm tying your hands, you can't get through.
And then realistically, the easier way is to come in off of 50th Street because of the grade issues, separation issues. And you can do anything with dirt, move it out, but yes, and
opposed to an access strip, I wish there was a way we could say that there would be a easement or something through there at their request that he would then agree, but we can't, so I guess I'll go with the access strip as of now.
Yeah. Paul?
I'm for the variance before me to approve the 30-foot access strip.
I guess for approving it, I mean, we've talked through future, and I agree with you, Paul. We can't necessarily plan the future for people. But also, as a variance, when you start talking access strips coming from 50th, is it up there? There's a lot of egg land to go through, and that's something I've always opposed, you know, and have been against. This coming off of where he's at now, without trying to preserve something on the property line for the road, to allow a variance to come in on, basically off of the road on an access strip of 33 feet, it's another driveway coming in and coming off. And it continues to preserve in our ordinance the ag land without coming in with an access strip. So with what we have to work with, or what is already there, you know, it's not necessarily undoable. So I guess that's, yeah.
And kind of, I mean, we look at, we're almost, you know, forced to look at the totality of it. So the Bowmans have acreage, they have entitlements available.
Right.
And so, you know, this would set what they may or may not be able to do if they wanted to sell an entitlement on that something. So, I mean, you're kind of setting it up. If you approve it for here, well, you better approve it there too.
Yeah.
And it would have to come back to this board because of the determination with
I strongly believe that we would be setting the precedence for another lot on their end, you know, for the neighboring property, whatever, because it would be the same precedence 33 feet on the other side.
Except for he mentioned it would be pretty tough to get it on that side because of the grading, right? It was really steep there.
Well, I mean, ideally, again, Dan, anything's possible. You can move enough dirt, you can do enough stuff. But logically, you kind of say, if I'm going to build a road and try and avoid 8% or greater grades and big cuts and fills, and also try not to cut down all the mature trees to make that happen, you try and say, I'm going to move the road and bend the road. No different. Hickory Hills bent through to get to the least cut and fill, you know.
And these aren't city developments where they make a hill where there was a hole and make a hole where there was a hill.
Right.
That's commonly what you see. They move so much dirt in city developments, but they're running, you know, sewer, water, and everything else. But most of these people try to work with the grade the best they can, driveways and access and stuff. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Tom, that you have the same situation on 50th Street too. It kind of dead ends right at the property, or does it? I don't know the legal description for the road, but at least from what I can see, it looks like it dead ends.
On every map, my driveway is the road. Yeah. I can't say I have 33 feet. I don't believe it's always been maintained by the township through the years. Turn around in my yard. I think a few people want to get that out of there, but it's always been the road.
I just know, I think the legal description of it ends at that section line. But there again, I don't get into the road maintenance, the legalities of it. There's way too many attorneys that have been involved in those. I don't touch it. But just from a legal description standpoint, it looks like the same thing. Road, 50th Street ends right at that section line, right at your property. It looks like I haven't read the legal description. That's what it looks like.
Well,
Okay.
I'll make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion, and feel free to step in. It's kind of simple here, if I got it right. Make a motion to approve the proposal to approve a strip, access strip for 4-acre entitlement division with 33 feet of public frontage road on Fenning Avenue.
Are you approving an access strip or as?
A driveway.
Okay.
So help me out with the term.
You're approving it as proposed.
Okay.
Okay, then corrected as proposed per exhibit, Exhibit A.
Can I ask one thing in
Sure.
the motion, Paul? That I just arbitrarily picked 4 acres from the discussion.
Sure.
So whether it's, you know, I don't want to get hamstrung by your action if I want to make it 3.5 or I want to make it 4.5, because the zoning district it has to fall under which would be, and the code's real clear, I have to fall under that RR2, which gives me a maximum lot size of 10 acres and a minimum lot size of 2 acres. And because all the other standards, right, Barry, have to conform to that RR2. And so I prefer that the motion say I conform to the existing standards, our performance standards.
That's certainly, the board could say approximately 4 acres and all other dimensional requirements.
Approximately 4 acres, fine, yeah.
Yeah, because it might stay that shape exactly. I'm just saying, when it
That's fine.
finally gets done, by the time you figure out where a septic is, you might have to,
My only concern is the big difference between 4 acres and 10 acres, that's all, so.
I'm not trying to get to
Okay,
10.
so we'll say approximately 4 acres, you're comfortable with
Yep.
that? Great.
Yep.
Okay.
Been moved, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Vote.
Dan Vick, aye.
Paul, aye.
John, aye.
Dan Mall, aye.
Bob Newman, aye.
thank you.
Now remember, that's a 33-foot access strip. You know,
Well, as
coming
drawn,
off the end of the township there.
Right.
So-
The township was all pro for it. They didn't have
Yeah.
any issues.
But I'm just saying, you have neighbors on each side that don't sound like they're in favor of it, so make sure what you do is you stay within your 33 feet.
Yep, and if Tom and Jenny want to sit down and talk about creating an easement for the road to the future, we're,
We'll can answer your question, but we have to proceed with what we have.
Yeah.
Variance has been approved, so.
Yeah.
But I'll, you got questions?
oh, I'm just trying to say,
So what
well,
you gave them is, you gave them like 33.5 feet.
no,
No.
No, he's stuck on his side.
But he only had a 15.
no, 33, you had 33 times.
Yeah, everyone has 33 feet. 33 feet here, 33 feet here. That's all he gets.
So it's when they put Hickory Hills in.
We do have some more
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
We have to take care of here, so.
Yeah, so,
You can take it in the lobby.
Can you guys talk about it in the lobby?
yeah, we're gonna, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for the time and discussion.
Okay, so the other item is just, I don't know what we need here, it's been so long since I've done one of these.
Well, I'll have to get a pen.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you if you have.
So, but yeah, let's take, the action would be to accept this plat and authorize the chairman's signature. It's the back lots proposed that you heard a couple months ago.
We got to take a
Maple
look at.
Lake.
Do we have to, he needs to sign both, there's two here.
I didn't recognize it.
So if you want to show them what it looks like.
That's what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
John, you care if I run to the bathroom quick?
You can walk.
All right, I can walk?
Yeah.
Should I go get the pen
Yes,
while
please.
Dan? Okay.
You're gonna follow me?
No, she's gonna get a pin and you're gonna go to the restroom.
I didn't hear her.
So if any of the board members wanna see how the final layout, it's here, but it's, yeah, they're all backlot plats.
Did it change any from what we saw before?
Oh, right here.
Yeah, so, John, you'll just sign there, and then there's.
What edition is this now? The one we just.
Yeah, this is the one we
We
just
just
did.
talked about,
Yeah, I think in
yeah.
January, I think we did this. So these are all backlots that are tied to the.
It gets down here and it gets scary.
Yeah, there's a couple of extremely small ones here. So the guy you gave the 40,000 square foot lot to, all the trees are already gone. Now he wants to terrace it. Move about for 3,000 yards of dirt.
Be in for conditional use permit for that, I would assume.
Scott went out there, I don't know.
You don't have to leave.
I'm just here for the experience.
Yeah, what was the
And?
experience?
It was good. Yeah. Barry tried showing me the door.
Yeah,
You
faces,
didn't you didn't get the update, but I'm gonna run up to Lee now and make sure for the next Board of Adjustments that people are allowed to come in. Because that's the way it is for regular board, that's the way it is for planning.
Sean sent out that email, and I actually have a note to make sure we change what we have on the website and on our notices.
Okay.
It's gonna be same type of deal, I think. We'll have people wait in the lobby, but we won't limit the public from coming to the meeting, but we're not gonna have everyone sitting here. You're gonna come in and out with your request, I think is the way
Yeah, and they'll be able to come up and talk.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. That's why I didn't require the Bowmans to leave, because it's like, I knew we were going that way, so I'm not gonna.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Are you gonna be in your office?
Possibly, yeah.
I'll stop in there.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Mark Ketchmer.
Yeah.
He's the new commissioner. Took Charlie's.
Charlie Burrell's position. Oh, okay.
He's on the planning commission too, right? So the board have they,
Oh.
you've gotten what you need from the board, or you still need to?
I'll make a motion.
Just a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Maple Crest second edition as presented.
Authorize the
And I
chairman
second it.
signature. Okay.
Seconded and motioned it?
Yeah.
I sign it here. Right here?
Yes, right. And I'll date it for you, but there's two
I
places.
tell you what,
we'll
we
go
got a
to
pretty good
decide.
board here. I really like working with you guys. It's really nice to be able to have some nice discussions and agree, disagree, and then come around and back, you know, it's really nice.
Not calling each other names or nothing?
No, well,
Well, and everyone, you know, if you don't agree, you can, the board members can say, well, I don't agree, and here's why.
Yeah.
But you don't get testy about it, but.
Okay, John, one more time.
Somebody
I'll pull
Bob
it,
today,
I'll pull it over.
He opposed one, Dan opposed to one.
One more time.
what I appreciate is, you know, I was pretty adamant about the
Where did you
one,
get it underneath?
but how you guys were able to walk me through it and show me, hey, this is a little bit different here. This is not exactly quite, you know, I appreciate it because, you know, I really didn't want to have to stand on that ground, but I did, and
Yeah, that's
anyway, I really appreciate it. So.
That's what we're supposed to do.
All done.
But we're on mic here too, so.
Yeah, have anything else for us, Barry?
Hey, do we got our time, or our sheets there?
Anything
I
else,
got
Barry?
nothing else, make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Hey Terry, I need, I don't have my timesheet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'll grab it.
I sent them out, what's that?
Oh, no, the blank ones.
Oh, blank one.
So it's a new one, I guess? is it?
Yeah.
You guys
Oh, I can fill out
have
next time.
everything sent to your